Okay, so I want to welcome Marianne Pizzitola onto NYC for Yourself. And I have to say, I'm switching things up a little bit with this channel today for the first time, because normally this channel is devoted to on-the-ground reporting, live streaming, so that, like the name says, people can see events happening in the city for themselves, hear directly from New Yorkers that I interview on the street. And this actually grew out of an interview that I did do on the street, which was about a month ago. There was a protest going on. There was a union meeting happening inside the Uniform Sanitation Men's Union office. Harry Nespoli was there. He is both the head of that union and the head of the the chair of the Municipal Labor Committee, which is what we're going to be talking about now. So there were some protesters outside, and one of them was talking to me about the changes that the MLC had just approved to the city administrative code. That video got a lot of attention. City workers are very interested in understanding what that change is going to mean for them, what the status of that change is, who made it, and everything that's going on with it. So I received an audio recording of the meeting where the MLC approved that amendment to the administrative code. And I have brought Marianne on to talk with me because she has a great depth of knowledge about this topic. And instead of just putting that recording out there for people to sort through on their own, I really wanted to get somebody knowledgeable about this topic so that we can listen to it together and talk about what the arguments being made are and explain what all this means, because it gets pretty wonky. So I am counting on you, Marianne, to be a translator and a guide to the wonky language here. Okay, so before we dive in and start listening to this meeting and talking about what happened there, why don't you just give a little bit of an overview of what this administrative code, this section of the administrative code says, and why you know so much about it, because you've been involved with the suit that New York City retirees brought after Medicare Advantage was introduced as a new plan for city retirees.
Right.
Your organization sued and won that suit, and that decision was based on this part of the administrative code. So why don't you just talk a little bit about what that part of the administrative code says and what your suit had to do with it.
Okay. So what is 12-126? It's a code, the administrative code that was legislated in 1967. And the reason why we have it is because in 1966, Medicare was became available to anyone that was eligible. So if you were over 65 or you were on disability. And the mayor at the time, Mayor Lindsay, wanted to be able to give this federal program to the retirees to help them. And at the time, Medicare premium was $3 a month, and it covers the first 80% of your bill. And the city said, well, this is great because it would save us money, and we could, it just leaves us to cover the last 20%. And the mayor had already committed himself to paying for the full cost of health insurance for retirees and employees. So for employees, it was really easy when Medicare came about. He just had to do a personnel order. For retirees, though, he had to pass a law to be able to give this to them and still pay for it. So 12-126 was legislated at the request of Mayor Lindsay, and it gives you two benefits. One, Medicare B reimbursement. So the city actually reimburses retirees who pay Medicare B premium. So you'll pay the premium every month out of your Social Security check. Come next year, you get that reimbursed to you. So that's the first 80%. Now you have the city part that pays your last 20%. So the city, for us Medicare persons, they're really only paying a small amount of money. It's that last 20% of our bill. So our plans are inherently small. They also pay the premium for that up to the HIP HMO rate. So what is that? The law reads, the city will pay for the full cost of health insurance up to the HIP HMO rate for every employee, retiree, and their dependent. So the HIP HMO rate, HIP HMO is a plan that the city offers for all employees and retirees. Whatever that rate is, that's the cap. So that's really as simple as that is. So if this year the plan cost, like when we first started our lawsuit, I want to say that the cost of that was about $776. And then the next increment went to like $815 or something. And I think now it's like $925. So whatever that cap is, basically you look at it as like an inflation protection built into it. No matter what that rate is, that's what the city has to pay for you, for your health care, for every employee, retiree, and their dependent on a monthly basis. So it gives you those two protections. And we've had this since 1967. That's why it's super important, because it protects everyone equally. Now, for a Medicare person, their plans, like I said, are those small Medigap or supplemental plans. Those cost under $200. So the city is really not paying a lot of money for a Medicare eligible person. For an active employee, their plans, there's a value of over $900. Now, they will offer the GHI plan and the HIP plan for free. However, every other plan, if let's say there's a plan that you want, an Empire plan or whatever that they offer that's over the cap, then the city will pay up to that cap, and then you pay the difference, and it's still a savings. So that is what 12-126 is, and it equally protects everyone across the board.
So what happened with the court case? What happened with the lawsuit?
The lawsuit. So we sued because the city was trying to force us into one plan, a Medicare Advantage plan, which is a managed care plan. And why did they want to do that? Well, because those plans are federally subsidized, and it would remove the cost from the city's budget, which isn't, looking for savings isn't a bad thing. It's just how you're doing it needs to be scrutinized. So when we sued, it was because we were being forced into that Medicare Advantage plan. We were told you have no choices. You're going to auto-enroll you into this Medicare Advantage plan. If you don't want that Medicare Advantage plan and you want to keep the plan that you currently have, you're going to have to pay for it. And the rate was about $200 a month. Those are the same plans we've been having available to us for the last 55 years, 60 years at no cost. Now, all of a sudden, you're telling me that I either take what you're giving me, which is a managed care plan, or if I want to keep what I currently have, I'm going to have to pay $200 per person per month. And at the same time, the city and the MLC also instituted $15 copays on every test or procedure that was offered to us. Those today are amounting to car payments to some of our most infirm seniors. So this was why we sued, was because we wanted to stop this. It was stripping us from all of our other choices and taking away our rights, things that we negotiated for, we benefited by through all of our years of working that we negotiated. We didn't take raises. We took delayed implementation of raises. We took 0 raises in like 95 to 97 under Giuliani. We delayed raises again under Dinkins. We took that in order to preserve what we had. And we always knew that going into city service, we would never get rich, but we would always have the good benefits and pension. And now all of a sudden, the city and the MLC want to take that away from us in retirement. How could you justify that? So that's why we sued. And when the judge made the decision, he said that the decision was based upon the Administrative Code 12-126, because that does state that the city will pay up to the HIP HMO rate for any plan that the city was offering equally. So this is why we did sue, is because now they were trying to take that away from us while this statute was in place. And we won. The city appealed the next day. We have court on the 27th of October. And now the MLC and the city are trying to change the law that we won on, trying to preempt it before the court case on the 27th, just to squeak this through. And that's just That's just horrible to try to do that. They knew that they were wrong, but they're going to try to do it anyway. They're going to try to go around the judge's decision.
We've talked a little bit about what kinds of money people are getting as their pensions, and how the increase in cost will affect them, because you're talking about, a couple $100 a month maybe, and a lot of people might think, oh, that's not so crazy. What's the kind of minimum amount that New York City retirees are getting as pensions?
So, for example, DC 37 retirees are civilian, mostly people of color and mostly low income. 2/3 of those make under $25,000 pensions, and 1/3 of those make under 10. So when you start looking at those numbers, you start to realize what that looks like. If you're taking in a pension of $10,000 a year, or $15,000 a year, even $20,000 a year, and then now you're asking someone to either take a plan that they don't want because of all of the aspects to it, prior authorizations, the additional co-pays, the narrow networks. You're asking them to do that or pay to keep a plan that they've had for 20, 30, 40 years, then you're really not permitting them choice if they can't afford to pay. So if you're making a $400 or $500 a month pension, even if you're making $1,000 a month pension, how is it that you're going to pay $200 a month for you, $200 a month for your spouse, plus all these additional co-pays in order to maintain your health care? You can't. And today, for example, we have, I can tell you two situations. We have a retired police officer who lives with his wife, and he has an adult disabled daughter. He retired in 1976. His top pay then was $15,000. He takes a 50% pension. You do the math. Even after all of these years, he's not going to be able to afford $200 a month for him, $200 a month for his wife, and $200 a month for his daughter. Somehow.
Because it's not just, you're saying it's not just 200 for everybody on the plan.
No, it's 200 per person per month.
Yeah.
Yes. And Medicare Advantage plans don't permit coordination of benefits. So, for example, the daughter needs Medicare and Medicaid. Under Medicare Advantage, she can't have Medicaid. She also requires certain drugs that will not be covered in his welfare fund drug plan. So in order for her drugs to be covered, she has to buy a private drug plan called a PDP, private drug plan, Medicare private drug plan. That is also not permitted under Medicare Advantage. So in order to keep his daughter in the facility that she's in and on the medications that she needs, he has to opt out. And because the city will not allow one person in the family to be on one plan and the another in another plan, you all have to be in the same. So either they're all opting out or they're not. So for her, for example, in this case, if he were to opt out, he would be paying his Medicare, his wife's Medicare, the daughter, all three of them, which is $170 per person per month, plus the price of the plan that they pegged for the senior care, which was another $191 times 3. Now their drug plan. Now he's not going to get his Medicare B reimbursement because he opted out of the city. If he did opt out of the city plan, this gets convoluted. So it's a struggle to listen to. I have another lady who's in her 70s, and she has to have chemo treatments. She's had cancer now for the 3rd time. With the cancer, every time she goes in for chemo, she has to have blood work. $15 copay for the chemo, $15 for the blood work. She has to go to the doctor 3 times a week. She also needs physical therapy to keep up her strength. She can't do that. So she said to me, maybe I should just have the surgery and not do the chemo. I said, no, it doesn't work that way. So we're trying to find a way to help her. Because clearly the city and the MLC don't understand that people have this kind of a burden. That's the change to this code. What will it do? The new language that they want to put into it. So the original language would say the city will pay the full cost of health insurance up to the HIP HMO for every employee, retiree, and their dependent. Now they want to put a comma there and say, or in the alternative, any plan that the MLC and city choose to be the new benchmark plan for any class of individuals. They don't identify what the class is in the law. They've apparently tried to do a side letter that would say what the class is, but it's a side letter. It's not putting that protection, in the statute. So if it was really meant to be protective or restrictive of what the classes are, or what the benchmarks are, or what the limitations are, what the benchmarks would be, that would all be in the statute, and none of that's in the statute. So now they could say, well, in our court case, what they're trying to argue, what they will argue on the 27th, is that the city wants to say that for the Medicare eligible retirees, the plan value isn't the HIP HMO rate of $925 per person per month. It's $7.50, which is totally absurd because that plan had a running cost. This HIP VIP plan, which was the HIP's Medicare plan, had a running cost of almost $200. And they said they were going to make it more competitive to match the new plan, the Medicare Advantage plan, and drop the rate from almost $200 to $7.50. And why is that important? Because right now we're all protected at $925 a person a month. Mm-hmm. If you now allow that new benchmark to be $7.50, the city for a Medicare eligible will only have to pay up to here. So if you don't choose to go into the Medicare Advantage plan and you want your senior care, the city will pay $7.50 and you need to pay the difference, thereby transferring the full premium now to a fixed income or low income retiree forevermore. And that's how they remove that. The city wasn't founded for this. The city founded healthcare to be able to pay for it for its employees and retirees. That was the premise. And they did that in 1967.
Let's talk about the relevance for, just spell out the relevance for active workers too, because I think most of the people, watching on my channel, you covered this a lot on your channel, and I'm going to link to your channel too, because you have so much great information there. But I think probably most of the people watching this on my channel are active workers. And so they want to know, yes, they're looking at, as someone said in this meeting that we have a recording of, all active workers are retirees in training. And so it's relevant to them in that respect, but they want to know how it's relevant to them now, how changing this code can affect what they're being offered, next year for health coverage.
Good point. It does the same thing. So let's say that the city doesn't really want to offer the GHI plan, which, just so you know, about 95 or 97% of actives and retirees are in the GHI CBP plan. If the city and the MLC choose to peg a plan for the actives, that's also with a minimal cost, $7.50. Premium transfer now happens to them too. Because right now they're trying to negotiate an in-service plan or an employee plan. Supposedly, the rumors through the grapevine is it will be an HMO plan through Aetna. And if Aetna can come up with this plan, supposedly that would be the new benchmark, not HIP HMO. So again, for an active employee, rather than the city paying up to the $925, if you don't choose whatever plan it is that they choose for you, if they choose this new plan here and this plan has a $10 premium, the city will tell you, you go into this plan, we'll pay the $10, you have no premium. But if you don't want this new plan, because you don't like that it's an HMO, and you want your GHI CBP or your Empire or your Cigna or whatever you want, then you've got to pay the difference. Now, transferring premium to employees too. And by allowing the MLC and the city to do this, they can strong arm each other, just like the city's allegedly doing right now to the MLC, to push the retirees into this Medicare Advantage plan with a pegged benchmark at $7.50. And they will do the same thing to the employees, because that's exactly the conversation they're doing.
All right, let's listen to it.
Okay, let's go.
We both listened to this recording, so we have an idea of what's going to be said. But I want to listen to what people are saying. There are arguments on both sides, and then I'm going to stop and I want to get your comments on what's being said here. Okay, there we go. This was September 8th. This meeting.
I really feel that we do need to develop a unified voice with a significant PR campaign that conveys to the members that we want them to have raises. We understand their pain with inflation, and yet this is what we have been struggling for, and we really want to protect healthcare and get that straight first. So I hope we can work on something like that. I'm more than willing to be on a committee that moves that forward. And yet the other issue that comes up time and again, and I feel this too, is that the hospitals are fleecing us, that the cost of medications are just absolutely, especially the non-generics, are through the roof. And I personally end up getting coupons and discounts and, going to Canada for some of my members just to kind of help them bear the cost of these exorbitant medications. So going forward, in terms of a long-term vision and campaign, how do we really affect, get beyond the fleecing, get beyond the exploitation of big pharma and all the for-profits on behalf of our members?
Donna, you are insane.
Okay, so this is what is always put forward, right? That healthcare costs are rising, have risen exponentially. Everybody's under pressure from big pharma, from hospital systems, insurance. It's just a very difficult situation, and so unions and the city are just need to do the best that they can to deal with that situation, right? That's basically what the argument that's being made here.
Right, and that there's been a history of a few of the hospitals within the 5 boroughs that were very, very expensive or charged more for services than in other hospitals, and they were trying to get either a negotiated rate or try to get them more in line with each other and not double or triple what the going rate appeared to have been with the other facilities.
Right. Okay.
The MLC leadership, because one of the things the MLC leadership did is they asked SIBO, our healthcare consultant, to take a look at how New York City stacks up against the next 4 largest cities. So Harry, if it's okay with you, let's Mango, who's on from SIBO, if you could succinctly just give the highlights, and there is a paper being prepared that Donna could vote towards what you're speaking about, for MLC leadership to decide how it goes. But Len, can you give a sense to the group of how New York City stacks up against the next 4 largest, and start by telling us who the next 4 largest are?
Sure. We looked at the 4 largest cities by population. That would be LA, Los Angeles, Houston, Chicago, and Phoenix. And we were very low. And we compared that to the city of New York. For actives, we found that the city of New York's plans are more generous in design and are lower cost than that of the other 4 cities. We note that the cities provide PICA directly, and welfare fund contributions indirectly get provided to fund the drug and other benefits, while other cities provide drug benefits through city-sponsored plans. Now, in particular for active plan designs, the cities, for the other cities, those 4 cities, the cost share, the deductibles, co-pays, and co-insurances are generally higher than that for the city of New York. While LA and Phoenix did have some comparable HMO designs, there are employee payroll contributions associated with them. Other less rich designs included offering high deductible plans, which were offered in Houston and Phoenix, narrow networks, which were offered in Houston and Phoenix, and three-tiered PPO plan designs offered in Chicago. In terms of contributions, all four cities charge payroll contributions. LA, the exception, LA did not charge, they only charge a portion of their population for contributions. There is some portion that isn't charged. They choose certain plans for certain part of the population, while the city of New York doesn't charge contributions at this point. Active dental and vision plans are offered by all cities at varying degrees of subsidy, except New York City, based on my comment earlier, provides money that can go directly to the welfare fund. For pre-65 retirees, we found that the city plans are more generous than the other four cities and are offered at no cost to retirees, while the other four cities have retiree contributions. Plan design-wise, three of the four cities that we compared against offered different plan designs to pre-65 retirees than to what's offered to the active. Only one of them had the same design as the active, that was Houston, but they charged significantly more for retiree contributions than even for their active employees. Chicago and LA have HMOs that are comparable to the city of New York's HMO, but other plans have less rich HMOs with deductibles and narrow networks in Houston states. And both have high deductible health plans, including Phoenix, which has a catastrophic or really, really high deductible health plan. Retiree contributions in Phoenix pay a high level of retiree contributions or pension deductions for healthcare that falls in the realm of $4,000 to $13,000 a year. Chicago retirees pay 50 to 100% of the full premium. Only Los Angeles had at least one option that had no retiree contribution. And LA's contributions for their other plans vary by years of service. Lastly, for post-65 retirees, the city of New York's coverage was comparable to the other four cities in three of the four cases, as they offered group plans. However, the fourth city offers a subsidy and allows retirees to purchase insurance from a Medicare health plan. Notably, contributions appear to be higher for all other cities. Plan design-wise, all of the cities offer group health plans except for Phoenix. That's what's offering the Medicare health plan where individuals go out and buy, but they get a little bit of money from that. That have co-pays rather than the voluntary Medicare fee, standard rider, and co-insurance, and no limit cost share. So that's the only thing that seemed to stand out that didn't favor the New York City plan was the drug rider isn't as good a coverage as what provides through the drug plans of these other four cities. LA had a close design to New York, while Houston and Chicago had HMOs that were comparable to senior care, cost share, as well as other HMOs and CPOs had deductibles that did not compare favorably to senior care. Senior care showed up better than most of the other plans out there. Retiree contributions, they vary among the comparison cities. While the cities of New York retirees pay nothing, Chicago has significant service-related contributions. LA has service-related contributions. Houston has contributions that ballpark $200 to $500 a year. They vary by plan, not by service. And Phoenix had a retiree health exchange, as we said before. So that's paid for by the retiree. And finally, Medicare Part B. City of New York reimbursed for Medicare Part B premiums, including IRMA, which is that additional payment for higher earners. And Chicago, Phoenix, and Houston don't appear to reimburse for Medicare Part B premiums at all. And LA reimburses for the Part B premium, only the base premium. They don't reimburse for IRMA. So again, the City of New York far better than most, if not all, of the cities compared against the Part B. That's the benchmark.
Thank you.
Harry, Alan, before you.
Okay. I gotta say, Marianne, I don't know what you're complaining about. According to this guy, you have like the best coverage in the world, right?
And you know, the crazy thing is yes, we did have great coverage, and this is what's really important for the current active employees to understand, that they make way more better salaries than yesterday's retirees. You know, today's retirees, yesterday's workers. We also know that compared to these other municipalities, one of the things that the gentleman from that organization didn't discuss is, what are the salaries in those municipalities? Are they making a lot more money? What are their income levels? What are their benefits? What are their pensions? What do they pay for pension? None of that is in there. And so that's really important to say. So when he says that that these other 3 of the 4 municipalities don't have a free option, that I really have to take with a grain of salt, because what is it if they're paying for health insurance, but they're making 25% more than we are, or 15% more than we are, or they have a better pension than we do, or they don't contribute as much as member contributions to their pensions? I have to say, what are we talking about? Is it apples and apples, or are we still talking apples and oranges? So on the surface, the information could be staggering. Well, someone would say, well, what are you complaining about? It looks like you're getting all these great benefits. Well, but what are all the other details behind there? Because that's what they're not telling you. And that's what I would really like to see spelled out, because I know what we gave up, and I know what my pension is, and I know what these other retirees' pensions are. So if we're going to compare it, you might as well compare the whole kit and caboodle. Put it all on the table and lay out everything that we have, we earned, we gave up, we whatever, compared to them. And then we're talking side by side, because right now, yes, there's, Los Angeles, from what he's saying, has a similar plan structure, but is that also the case with the other 3 cities? I don't know what their price points are, what their salary ranges are, or their benefits. I don't know any of that. And I don't think he did either. If he did, he didn't really say it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if you're in the private sector and you're looking at different job offers, different job possibilities, you compare the total compensation package that you're being offered, right? Salary plus benefits and what it all adds up to. And you're looking at these things within a local market. There will be different total compensation packages offered to you. But if you're a public sector worker, you don't see the market, because the people getting a different total compensation package are in a different city. They're in a totally different geographic area. So maybe not thinking about that comparison as much, but it does come up later in this meeting, people talking about the trade-offs that have been made between salary increases and benefits. So, okay, let's listen some more.
Continue. There's a question in the chat. It's a report that Len just gave. Can it be sent to the MLC?
I think the officers will need to look at that, because everything we send seems to end up in everyone's head. And I'm not sure that this would do well in the New York Post or Daily News or budget. Harry, with leadership.
Yeah, we'll definitely take it under consideration, right?
But I think we have to listen to Donna's point. It's not just about that analysis. It's about us putting together a way to actually communicate to all of our members that this is something we constantly work on, and it's really difficult. But at the same time, we have to tell the story of the fact that it's not free. None of this is free. And we take care of this at the collective bargaining table. So when the Post tries to write about how we have it better than anyone else, well, it's because we've used our collective bargaining power. And we have foregone raises at different points throughout our history to make sure that our health care is free and free. And we need to be able to tell that story, because we can tell the story to the members. Because my new members, they don't even know where their health care comes from, just like everybody else on the call. Yeah. Right? So we have to tell the story, but we have to tell the truth. we have to tell the truth to both sides. Like, this is really hard work. We're doing this, and it's not free, and we pay for it.
And Mike, I found the same thing. Artists talk, sociologists talk. For some reason, my new members just don't understand. They just don't understand. But,
Yeah. Well, we have to put something together to really start doing this, and it really falls on us.
as soon as we get something solid to do, that's what we got to do. We got to get it. We got to get it together.
Okay, Harry, we have a bunch of hands up.
Okay, they got to get it together. That was, you know, we didn't really talk about who's in the MLC. That I think that was Michael Mulgrew and Harry Nespoli talking there. And these are the most powerful unions. Who's at the top of the MLC? Explain this a little bit.
So the largest union in the MLC, I believe, is DC 37, Henry Garrido. The second largest is the UFT, Michael Mulgrew. The chair of the committee, who is the sanitation president, is Harry Nespoli. So you've just heard from two of the principals. And the other gentleman that was talking before, that was Alan Klinger. Alan Klinger is the attorney for the MLC, the UFT, sanitation, and I understand Emblem Health.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. But it is interesting that Mr. Mulgrew does feel that we paid for our benefits. What did he say? You know, we paid for this. It's not free. Yes, sir, we did pay for this. We earned this. We paid for it. We gave up stuff at collective bargaining. So how is it okay that they, the MLC, can take this away from employees and retirees today? I don't understand that. You know, because people that are employees that are nearing retirement are expecting to have what we've always had, and then now you're going to change this at the 11th hour. That's really not great. You know, that's not great. And then to take it away from people who did pay for it and earned it in the past. How can he make that argument in that sentence and do what he's doing? It doesn't make any sense.
All right. Well, so that was kind of the top MLC people and their lawyer kind of laying things out for the meeting. And I think next we're going to get into some questions from other union leaders how many unions are part of the MLC? 102?
So there's 102 unions, and there's a whole list of them. You know, there's the EMS unions, the fire unions, the police unions, the transit unions, the pilots, and the sanitation workers, the corrections officers, the nurses. I mean, there's 102 of them, and unfortunately, the MLC is why is it important? The size is because the unions have a weighted vote in the MLC. So they only have one vote approximately to every 250 employees. So the larger the union, the larger the vote. In order to get a vote passed, a margin has to be a 2/3 vote. You have to carry 2/3 of the votes. Well, between UFT and DC 37 together, they have almost 2/3. They usually need like Harry Nespoli or Greg Floyd from Local 237 to carry it. What I'm told, because it's all super secret squirrel, but this is the understanding that we have.
All right, so they got a lot of weight. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the rest of the people who are going to be asking questions are from the smaller unions, union leaders, and they bring their concerns. Okay, let's see what they have to say.
Thanks, David.
Good morning. Thanks, everyone. And I appreciate very much the presentation and the clarifications that were provided. And I know there's a lot of hard work that went into this preparation. As I understand it, we have three paths forward that have been explained that we need to choose between. And I'm concerned on behalf of the Professional Staff Congress. I want to express some concerns that we have about that framing of the different paths forward. And the PSC is going to be opposing, we're going to vote no on this, and I say that with no disrespect to anybody who's advocating for it. And I just want to have an opportunity to explain why. So I think everybody here knows it's been abundantly clear that the crisis that the stabilization fund is facing is very real. There's no illusions about that. And nobody wants the MLC to fail in its responsibility to uphold its part in the health savings agreement. What I'm hearing is that we can do one of three things. We can do nothing at all, status quo, in which case the city comes after us and they have leverage and they refuse to negotiate collective bargaining agreements with us. We can accept premiums and just give up the ghost on that and say, we're not fighting, we're going to accept 2 premiums now. Or we can do this, the proposal to change the administrative code and we can move on to Medicare Advantage. But we're not really talking seriously, we believe, about alternatives. We're doubling down as if the MA Plus direction is the only viable path forward. And in order to get on that path, you got to propose this change to the administrative code, which is not a minor step in our view. It's not a trivial revision. And I think I disagree with the characterization that it's merely a clarification of the existing code. I think it's more than that. I think it's an interpretation of the code and it's adding language in order to shore up that interpretation. Now, we have a provision right now in the current code that requires the city to cover all in-service members, retirees, and their dependents up to the HMO rate. And that's a single benchmark. It's a strong benchmark and it has an economic value attached to it. Arrangement with multiple benchmarks, but it's likely going to be less, or there could be a reduction in quality. And I don't feel comforted by the fact that we're still involved in negotiation, because negotiations take place on a playing field with lots of forces involved. And we may well be at a disadvantage, but the city has leverage, even though nominally we are negotiating. So we have a floor under our feet, the way that the code is currently written. And we feel the city's coming to us saying, you got to pull that floor out from under us. So I think, of course, we feel a responsibility as member unions in this MLC, but we feel that there are structural problems with the fund, that this is a short-term fix that could have longer-term repercussions in the way that we negotiate health insurance. And we've been advocating and MLC leadership has heard this on this. I don't want to say otherwise, for alternative approaches, both structurally to renegotiate the terms of the agreement and also to contain costs and bring in revenue. I know that we feel like the city has us over a barrel, but we believe that we in the MLC can do better than this. So thank you.
And James, just legally, just to be clear from tripartite, this actually is one part of the overall package. Having an RFP issue for the active plan, which we will get to subsequently, is part also. Nobody is saying that this is the only thing.
Okay, let's come back to that last bit. But first,
yeah, we're not just selling out you, we're selling out the employees too. Don't worry.
Yeah, let's talk about the RFP in a minute. So he's talking about three possibilities that are being presented, right? How realistic are these three paths? Let's see. The first one, the first one he talked about was the city. They're saying, what if the city doesn't negotiate?
At all, take the status quo. You can just leave things the way they are. He said, and that would be a bad thing, right? To leave things in the status quo, it depends. They're going to say we shouldn't be leaving it the status quo, but you can leave things the way that they are and don't do anything. I think you need to probably do something, but leave the law the way it is what he's saying. Leave the law, the status quo. That's my interpretation. I think that was his first path. His understanding was the first path.
I think he was suggesting that that there was a risk that the city would not negotiate, or he was suggesting that other people were suggesting that if they didn't make this change or they didn't do anything about it, that the city would refuse to negotiate contracts with the unions.
And that's illegal. It violates the Taylor law. They cannot do that. And to even say that, well, so if the city doesn't, then what do? Then you file a grievance. You go to impasse. You follow your processes. Why even throw that out there? Did the city refuse to go to bargaining with anybody? I haven't even heard that yet. Or is they just like pontificating? They're just, I'm not going to negotiate with you. Okay, no problem. I'm defending my people. I'll stand here all day. Are they really going to do that?
For people who don't know much about the Taylor law, what does that say? When was the Taylor law? When did that come into effect?
Back around the times of collective bargaining. So I guess that was like in 1960 something.
Right. Okay.
It provides a lot of different things. What's applicable here is that under the Taylor law, there's a few things. One, it provides that the unions can negotiate for employees that pay them a dues. Their requirements are that they can collectively bargain for someone who has wages, hours, and work conditions. So an employee has wages, hours, and work conditions in their bargaining unit, those that they cover their titles, respective titles under their coverage. So you have EMTs and paramedics. So all their EMTs and paramedics that are in that local, they can bargain for all of them. But I'm retired. I'm not an employee. I don't have wages. I don't have hours, and I don't have work conditions. He can't bargain for me. So that's one of the things in there as well. It also, Taylor prevents public employee unions from being able to strike, because that used to be a thing in the 60s, and they wanted to stop that. And that's when they made collective bargaining, so that there was an avenue that the two sides could sit down and negotiate, rather than stopping city services and bringing things to a halt and causing, this chaos and disruption. That was a way of, I guess, the gentleman's way of trying to keep people talking and keeping the bargaining table going. So when you're trying to tell me that the city's going to refuse to bargain unless this healthcare thing, it's illegal. They can't do that.
Yeah, because the Taylor law says explicitly that the city is obliged to sit down and negotiate with the unions. There's another law that's applicable here too, right? The 1992 law.
So it's actually an agreement. The 1992 MLC agreement. Let me grab that one. And this was negotiated in 1992 between Stanley Hill, who was the chairperson of DC 37 MLC. He was the MLC chairperson. Stanley Hill was the president of DC 30, the executive director of DC 37 at the time. And then Sandra Feldman, who was the co-chair, who was from the teachers. And this document, we've even did a video on this on our channel, is relevant because it's still alive. This is still a living agreement. And it says, this letter shall serve to memorialize the agreement between the City of New York and the MLC with regard to the procurement of employee health benefit contracts, which are the subject of collective bargaining between the city and the unions. It is understood and agreed to by the parties hereto that the city and the union shall jointly continue to participate in all aspects of the procurement process to which the choice of vendors of collectively bargained health benefits shall be made. And this goes on. And why is this important and relevant? And I can prove this even recently. In 2013, the MLC sued the city under the Bloomberg administration because they tried to unilaterally institute a request for proposal, RFP, to replace the employees plan. Harry Nespoli, under the MLC, filed a lawsuit against the city, and he won, citing the 1992 agreement. So to be able to say, sorry, the city could take away our bargaining, the city could do whatever they want, no, that's not true. You have all of these powers, so I don't know why they're misrepresenting the truth. They have the power, and the city, under the Taylor law, must bargain with them.
Because this is something that I have heard in this meeting, and I've also seen it. I've been hearing some things about what people are hearing from their unions, who are their union representatives who are communicating with them about what's going on when they raise questions, and they're saying, well, the amendment to the code just gives the MLC power in the decision-making process that they don't already have. You know, it requires the city to work with the MLC when they're choosing a new plan or you know, making decisions about the healthcare system. You're saying, no, they already have that power.
Yes.
And presumably if Perry Despoli has used it in previous cases, he's aware of that power.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yeah, they have the power. So, like one of the videos I made, I talk about how the UFT and the MLC and DC 37 keep using the judge's decision as a weapon to say the judge took away our power, he took away our collective bargaining. No, he didn't do that. He solidified a law that's been around since 1967. He kept a protection in place for all employees and retirees. And he didn't take away anything. He said, this is the benchmark up to what the city has to pay for. This change of law takes away that protection across the board, allows basically two unions and the city to choose whichever the new benchmark would be to you. And if I'm telling you today that they're trying to take away my $925 benchmark and drop it to $7.50, the price of a fancy Starbucks cup of coffee for a health insurance plan, why would you do that? In the name of what? Gaining a protection? You're not gaining anything except risk.
So the other path forward that this person was mentioning was that they would have to accept premiums. That's being put forward as like one of the possibilities, that we would have to accept premiums, and I think that's being said by a lot of union representatives to people just on the ground, that this change is about preventing the city from bringing premiums into the workers, but that's not, you're saying that's not what's going on at all.
If they were really good negotiators, the city they agreed to give the city $600 million in recurring savings. That was a little aggressive to begin with, one. Two, don't you think in $600 million a year, if you're 102 unions, you could possibly come up with something that would still protect your health insurance and not touch this? In the grand scheme of things, because $600 million out of a how many billion-dollar budget doesn't make any sense.
So, but he was saying that it's being presented that that if they don't make the administrative code change, then the city will be able to charge people premiums. And you're saying that it's the other way around. It's the opposite. If you make this change, they'll be able to introduce premiums.
Oh, yes, they will. This opens the door immediately to premiums. Because, like I said, if they change the cap, right now the city has to pay up to $925 for all of us, every single one of us. If they drop that cap to whatever plan they want to peg us to, we know right now for retirees, one of those three options was putting you into a Medicare Advantage plan. That Medicare Advantage plan, they said in the last contract, had a $7.50 premium. Or the HIP VIP plan, which has a $7.50 premium. How ironic, they both have the same figure. If they want to drop a plan, a pegged rate or a benchmark from $925 to $7.50, you will for sure, if you're given options to opt out, which you should be, because not everyone can be in an MA plan, and there's a million of those reasons, and yet no one's really listening to them. But there's a lot of that's been in the press lately. If that happens, you will have to pay the difference between the $7.50 benchmark and whatever plan is on the table. If you look at the rate sheets for the city, the rates for those plans are not inexpensive. So you will definitely be paying a couple $100 a person a month for those plans. Now, if you're a family or if you're a single, I mean, you're paying the single rate. The family rate is, usually whether you have 2 kids or 10 kids. Maybe that should be something that should be changed incrementally as well. But you're opening the door to premiums across the board by allowing 2 unions even let's just say hypothetically, the two unions, DC 37 and the MLC, are having a bad day with the Teamsters. And they get into this fight and they're at bargaining and they're like, you know what? That guy's a pain in the butt. Let's just go peg that cheap HMO to him and we're going to peg him in that plan. So all of those Teamster people have to go into, whatever HMO. And that plan's $10. You want to opt out of that cheap $10 plan, the McDonald's coffee plan. Well, then you got to pay the difference. So sorry, bad Teamsters, you're paying $200 a month per person. It doesn't make any sense. But now if you do the same thing, if you allow these two unions to choose a plan benchmark to another union whose people don't make $30,000 a year, they decide to take that out on the lifeguards or the crossing guards or the lunch ladies. Are they going to be able to afford $2,500 a month in $2,500 a year in premium? No. Why would you do that?
Could that kind of a group of people be a class of individuals, as it says in the revised language? Because this leaves it very, so the amendment says, in the case of any class of individuals eligible for coverage by a plan jointly agreed upon, blah, 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 by the city and MLC, they don't. What is a class of individuals? Is there any definition for that anywhere that you're aware of?
No, they have not defined that. And if you look in the full statute of 12-126, it defines what a retiree is. It defines what an employee is. It defines what healthcare is. It defines everything. They just added this run-on sentence with no definition of what a class of individuals is. They didn't define what could be a benchmark, what restrictions, limitations, caps, floors. They didn't put in anything about what that could be.
So it could be any group that they define later: active workers, retirees, people from a specific union or line of work or agency.
And the only place that they put that was in a side letter after one of the unions gave them some pushback. They put it in a side letter. Well, if you're really going to offer a protection on who the benchmark classes could be for, you would define the classes in the statute, not put it in a side letter. So in the side letter, they state that they don't want anything that comment about anything about us crazy retirees that did this lawsuit, but they want to create the benchmark for the two classes of retirees, Medicare eligible, and active employees and non-Medicare eligible. Those would be your two classes. But because it's in a side letter, it's just an agreement, and that can be changed at any time. Whereas the statute is something more permanent.
Right. Okay. Before we go back to the meeting, there was a little thing that was slipped in at the end there about an RFP. This meeting, the recording that I've received is exclusively about the amendment. But I believe there was on the agenda for this meeting discussion of Aetna plans and this was the lawyer, I think, referring to an RFP for an active worker health plan.
Yeah, because they had put out, many active employees may not know this, but in June, the MLC and the city negotiated an RFI called Request for Information that was published in the city record that was requesting a replacement for the employee plan. And they advertised it as to replace the employee plan for 750,000 employees, non-Medicare eligible. And it was defective and it was also misleading. How is it misleading? Because if they kill GHI CBP, the active employee plan, they also kill GHI senior care for the retirees. They're not telling you that, but that's what will happen because the senior care plan is a little supplement. It's just a 20% coverage plan that we get because we're on Medicare. So our plans are smaller, they cover less, they covers only 20% of the bill, and they're less expensive. So the other part, where was I going? I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I was thinking about something I wanted to mention also that has some bearing on this. We were talking the other day about all of these laws, all of the applicable laws, and I was asking you about what laws might be relevant here, with this amendment. And I was asking about state laws. And you mentioned that there is a state law that applies to teachers exclusively, that requires changes to retiree benefits to be identical to changes for active workers. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for teachers only, there's what they call the Moratorium Clause, and that is a state law. That requires that if there's going to be a change that will diminish the benefit of a retired school district employee, then the same diminishment must be made upon the employee, which is usually what would prohibit them from making a diminishment on a retiree, because then the same thing has to be done to the employee. They are the only category of personnel that have that protection. That law is specific to DOE, UFT, DOE teachers, school district employees. Nobody else. Cops, firefighters, civilian, no one else has that. It's just strictly a school district teacher, DOE protection.
So that would mean that if this change goes through, and changes are made for retirees, right, that the UFT, Michael Mulgrew, could then turn around and say, well, we can't make that change because we would also have to apply it to our active members, and we can't do that? Or would it mean that he's expecting a change to come for active members?
It could be both.
Right.
You can make the other unions eat each other alive and peg each other to whatever plans that they want, and say, I'm out of this because I'm covered by state protection. I'm not doing this to my employees, so I can't do it to the retirees. So I'm out. We're keeping what we got, and you guys go ahead with whatever the heck you decide to do for each other. It could be scary. I mean, if you look at this at every different, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means, but I have to look at this every which way to say what could be the worst thing that can happen if this is interpreted this way, or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
All right, let's listen a little more.
This is sort of part of what Simon has said. This is the path forward in order for the city to eat the $1 billion that was owed by the end of this year. So what PSC is saying is that other things should be looked at as well. That is going to happen.
Thank you. Charles Simmons? Kyle Simmons, are you still on?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go to Mike Truman.
Thank you, Ellen. I don't know how to vote yet, I'll be honest with you, because I hear all these administrative codes, old codes, new codes, this code, that code. What you should have brought into us today is to show us in writing what the old code entails and what you explained with the new code. And I still have no idea what the old code is. So I'm really lost. So having said that, if I'm lost, not that I'm dumber or smarter than anyone did, but I'm willing to bet 80% of people there, not that they are, uneducated or ill-informed or anything, but they don't understand this whole situation. Even if that was, not to cut you off, that was distributed. And now you get everything about the old code. All I see here is administrative codes that we're going to change if there's an impasse, that we won't go to arbitration. I see the city, all my years with the city of New York, they do what they want. That's the bottom line. And I'm sure, I tell you how long I'm with the city. I've been there for cops. This will be probably my 46th, 47th deal with the city of New York. And I tried things we worked on, look at the de Blasio administration. Pensions. He promised that he would take care of it. What does he do? He shifts first the teachers and then shifts us. So there are not people who are trusted along, unfortunately, I have to say.
All right. So I feel totally simpatico with that guy who was like, old codes, new codes, what's going on? When you first start looking at this stuff, it's like, whoa, okay, what does this all mean? But this is a meeting where they're about to vote on this. This is a union leader talking, and he hasn't seen the documents. And when he says, hey, I haven't seen what we're talking about here, he's told, well, we sent it out. Let's move on.
And that's so painful to listen to, because I know what my team goes through to get our seniors and retirees to understand something that even we put out. Why didn't someone realize the gravity of this and said, you know what? He's expressed, you can feel that man's pain, right? But no one took a pause to say, let me explain this to you. Let's go through this step by step. Or honestly, why did they jump to this meeting for a vote without even having a session for all of the union principals to say, let's explain this? 12-126-101. Here's the new code. This is what it means. Here's the old code. Here's what it means. Here's the amendment we want to make. This is what will happen if we don't do it. This is what will happen if we do it. Why didn't they take the first hour of this whole damn meeting and actually rip this thing apart and hash it out? And why didn't even it happen in a series of meetings before this? Because they're just rushed to do this because they want to go around the judge's decision? This is something that really should have been vetted out through all the different committees, as well as with all of the principals. They should have had sessions on this. And if they learned anything from the way they rolled out that horrible Medicare Advantage plan by trying to force it down our throats, they put out misleading information, confusing information, to where even the judge said that this would cause irreparable harm to do this the way that you're doing it. And it's confusing and misleading, and the information you put out was incorrect. Do it again. And so they started this in July of 2014 to try to get everyone enrolled by October. And here it was, we got our decision in March, and the judge said, you can go ahead, but you need to give them at least 3 months. Why didn't that process take place with this? Changing a statute since 1967 that would definitely walk things back. And here's a man pleading, I don't understand this. Please explain it. And they basically brush him off and tell him, well, we gave it to you.
Yeah. To be fair, we don't know. Maybe they had some other meetings. Maybe they had some other discussions. People don't send me recordings of every meeting.
Darn.
Yeah, that would be something. But yeah, certainly this guy was not up to speed. I think that not everyone, I think we'll see this later in the meeting, not everyone was even there. Some people were, voted by proxy. So really you don't feel like there's full participation and representation happening.
No.
Yeah. All right.
We took money and money and money into their pockets only to be fooled by them. So I would love to have the old administration. It doesn't tell me the see, it does not tell me a thing. The only thing I say, or I heard now, is this is an impasse, which I'm sure there will be. If you're not taking this to arbitration, how do you fix an impasse if you don't go to arbitration? And the police and fire proved us that what I'm saying to you is right. The impasse is we go to arbitration. And that's what's going to happen at the end of it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mike.
And I believe that the administrative code 12-126 has all this part of the package and distributed. What it does is it has the phrase in it, or if the parties may negotiate. That's the new language. Otherwise, it's the existing administrative code.
So truly, I don't understand. There's really nothing that's here to help us out.
Mike, I'm sorry. It's a clarification. The language about this goes back to Jim's point. That the floor which requires the city to pay the HIP HMO on a categorical basis is not changed. That language remains. That value remains. But one thing has not been said is
You have the buzzer. False.
I'm sorry, it's a trigger.
Okay, so why are you giving it the
Oh my gosh. The language is remaining there, but the value can be changed. It's leaving it open to great risk. It's not a clarification. Jim Davis, the first speaker, said, he respectfully disagrees that it's just a clarification. It's not a clarification. It is altering the language of the law that will definitely open up people to paying a different benchmark, well less than the $925. Jim Davis is his professional staff Congress. They're professors from CUNY. They're not idiots. These are smart, educated people. And yet someone else is trying to tell you, don't look at that guy behind the curtain. It's just a clarification. Don't worry about it. Sorry.
is by the judge's decision, the city could then put everybody in the HIP.
No,
right?
I need a
Because
buzzer
that's
again. The city can't put everybody just into HIP. Guys, I want to scream when I heard this. You have an agreement. They can't just take away your plans. They can't just do that to you. Oh my goodness. They can't. Yeah, he said what? The value remains there, but the judge said they could just put you. That's not true. They can't do that. It's upsetting.
Okay, false. All right.
That's all they're required to pay. I want to say that again. This added language that Alan just said, this added line just allows it to also provide the idea of choice. That is not just a HIP HMO.
You want me to buzz again?
We can all say, it's there, you can against it or not. But the changes of the code is not opening the code to allow for everything else. It's simply adding a line that allows for other than that option to be negotiated. And I think that has to be said because people are saying, we open the code, we're allowing for this, and that happens, they can start taking away the benefit. That's not what this is. At least that's, I'm putting it forward, and people need to ask the question. I get it. But that's what the proposed language is. Okay.
I think for me, the key word is alternative. It is not in addition.
In the alternative, because again, yes, everyone, the city must pay for everyone now up to the $925 a month or whatever the cap is today, whatever it is, that's what they have to pay up to. If it's $1,000 tomorrow, the city has to pay up to $1,000 for everybody tomorrow, every month, retired, employees, dependents, everybody. But in the alternative, whatever plan that the MLC and city choose as a benchmark for any class of individuals. So let's just say that the MLC and the city choose that the new benchmark isn't the HIP HMO for actives. The new HIP HMO for actives is going to be, I don't know, this other plan, this HMO plan, this no frills plan, this really cheap plan, that's $10. That's your new benchmark. And if that plan's not serving you, and you and your wife or husband and your spouse, you've got 5 kids, 3 kids, 2 kids, whatever, you are now going to only be given $10. That's your new plan. And then
That's
you
the
guys
alternative.
as the alternative.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? It's opening up the door to misery, to premiums, to eye costs, co-insurances. I don't understand their rationale with this, because if they walk this back, they will never get it back. Never.
I understand you, and you know, I am leaning towards it, but here's the thing, also with Aetna, I've had not my own personal experiences, but my members who have had Aetna in New Jersey especially. They hate this Aetna. They cannot stand that. They would go to him anywhere, not Aetna. What they have to do because of the situation that they're in, I'm talking about the retirees, and they call me and they tell me how bad this is. So I'm skeptical about Aetna as well. And I'll be honest with you, to me, it would have been much better. Unfortunately, they dropped out because I've had it, and my wife says she just said right, so I have to listen to my wife. So, anyway.
Actually, Mike, just so the record is clear, it was Empire that dropped out because of its parent. Emblem was happy to stay in and to be part of it.
Yeah, but now let's be clear. We're not voting. We're not solidly connected yet. We have a long way to go.
That's correct.
And if we're not comfortable, we're not going to go.
But didn't we always have a plan, an option? We always had an option.
The Medicare Advantage by Aetna is being provided for thousands of retirees for over 2 decades. There is a Medicare Advantage for Aetna right now that the retirees choose over time. So let's not make it sound like this is like a brand new concept. Okay? They've been around for decades now. Now, whether that's good or bad or indifferent, it's not a new concept. It's the issue of option. So I think that's what.
But doesn't the law say that they have to pay the hit rate as well?
The current administrative code has that we're not changing that for the actives. This would be changed for the retirees with a plan that basically, where the healthcare people tell us there is that of which they have, but there's that campaign from the retiree group. But this amendment by itself changes nothing for the actives. It just gives an opportunity, as Michael said, for the MLC to have more control over what's going on.
And we'll be able to keep the fixed senior care, which.
Yeah. See, that's the argument that I have heard coming back to people through the unions, that it changes nothing for active workers, and that it just gives the MLC more control and more of a say in negotiations.
Did you see any of that control in that run-on sentence they added? No. I want them to explain to me how that gives them more control over what's going on. Right now, everyone knows that there's 11 or 14 plans, depending if you're an active, there's like 11 plans, I think 14 for retirees. And one of those reasons is because some of those plans, you have retirees that live in other areas that the plans that the other 11 don't cover that region. So like, for example, Arizona retirees need like a Cigna plan that covers people in Arizona. The other plans don't cover that state. So you needed a couple extra plans. So you have 11 plans if you're employees, 14 plans if you're a retiree. The city still has to pay up to $925 a month for everybody. And you have a choice of 11 or 14 plans. The city pays up to everybody. That to me I got choice. I got 11 plans. I got 14 plans. I can spend up to $925. Anything above that is on me. I'm sorry. You got choice and you got a cap. That's pretty high. You put this in, you're now allowing the unions and the MLC and the city to say, you know, for you Medicare people, I'm not going to let you go up to $925. I'm only letting you go up to $10.
Mm-hmm.
It's not choice. That's not choice. And that's definitely not free. Because you're going to pay for it one way or another. Anything in my life someone ever told me was free, it's always got a catch. And we're from New York. How do you not expect me to look at that? Where's the hidden cost? Where's the tax? Where's it built in? What you charging me? What's the hook, buddy? I was born on Monday, but it wasn't this Monday.
All right.
Under the judge's ruling is in jeopardy.
Correct. The city wants us to jettison it because the judge didn't say you have to keep secret. Judge said, the city has to offer one plan, that meets the criteria, and if the city doesn't want to offer senior care, it doesn't have to. This is what we're accomplishing here with the service. And again, Michael and others are right. There is no agreement to go to Aetna. It's being explored. Aetna has said that if they get the contract, they will allow people to choose senior care or get them under the exact same terms that was.
I thought the law doesn't say that. I mean, if this will give the MLC and the city, they can peg any plan at any time.
Yes, but if the MLC has that option, but nothing changes. The MLC would have to decide to change from the HMO as the basis for the action. The amendment doesn't change that itself. It gives the right to the MLC.
I thought the judge said it was against that.
That's the whole point of the amendment is to restore, as Michael, the whole point of this was to restore the ability of the MLC to decide what it believes is appropriate. And
What it believes.
But they already have that, right? You're saying that according to the 92 agreement, they have the city is required to make that choice with them. Right.
Yes.
I know a lot of the people who were part of the original negotiation did not want to see senior care jettisoned. They wanted senior care as an option for those who wanted to keep.
Okay, they're talking about senior care, which is the program that retirees have now. That's what
it's the Medigap. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The little carve out.
Right.
Kyle, we're going to go back to you. Kyle?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate all the hard work that put into trying to put an end to this unfortunate situation with our health plan. But I have to disagree in reference to changing the administrative code. This is the reason why. Well, one of the things is we all retired as a training. And I want everybody to understand that. All colleagues of ours used to say that all the time. We are all retired as a training. And I don't care what kind of financial resources we have obtained over the years as public service employees, unless you are Bloomberg, any type of devastating illness that can happen to either one of us or our family members can drain us completely dry. Right now, the retirees and the actors are on a level playing field. A lot of emphasis has been put on contracts. And there's too much emphasis put on contracts. Because contracts is just that. Contracts are broken by the city of New York on a regular basis, and we have to fight them. Because they break them. A lot of people don't realize that, you got the New York State Emergency Act, Financial Act. Contracts can be wiped out. Now, it hasn't been done so far. But the fact that they can be wiped out, that's the reason why I'm saying we put so much emphasis on it, because they can be wiped out. So whatever agreement we make, whether it's with the MLC, with the city, or our individual bargaining contracts, can be wiped out. Because we heard it countless times that there's been different aspects of this healthcare that has been popping up. Different, but it still has to revolve around healthcare. Decisions have been made in the past in reference to why we are having this discussion right now, because all the avenues and eyes was not guided at that particular time, because it was unknown entities that came out of the blue and put a stop to it. And I believe that the same thing is going to happen with what's going on right now, because a lot of people are just talking positive about what it can do. But there has not been too many questions and statements about what it can be, because there's always two sides of a story. The one that we want and wish for, and a possibility that can happen that people think that they will not happen, and they do happen. And that's the reason why I have to say that I'm not in favor of changing administrative code. I think it's a great administrative code. It works for everybody's benefit, even though at this time it's not working for ours. The city of New York is supposed to be coming to the table, bargaining with each and every union that is entitled to their contract is out of It's a complete violation of the law. Yeah, we're not talking about them violating these laws about negotiating contracts. So what makes you think they will negotiate anything or even follow through with certain contracts that they do decide to negotiate, and they find later on that it's no good? And that did happen with our fund when the contract was in full blown, and they said, "Oh, we're coming back. We need to modify it." So these are the tactics that the city has been doing to us for the longest time. And as a union president of 924 for the last 20 years, I always made it my business to fight what they've always been doing. And I've been very successful in fighting them. Just because of the business that they've been doing for the longest time doesn't make it right. And I think it comes a time that we need to stand up to the city. If you got money for every damn body else, for whatever the reason or whatever the cause may be good, may be bad, there's no difference. At the end of the day, we're public service employees. You rely on us to run the city and to function. Without us, you can't function. And you can't treat us like trash or secondary citizens. And everybody gets. And we have to give back and continue giving back. One of the things that was said about unions and old retirees, which we're trying to hurt right now, because it's going to be a two-tier system if we decide to do it. We're hurting these individuals that gave us everything that we are enjoying right now. They gave it to us. They sacrificed it to give us these non-premiums that we are enjoying today. They gave it to us. We didn't fight for that. We wasn't alive, or we was children at that time. So that's another reason why I'm against to take anything away that's going to give them priority with us. I don't care about the contract that we can negotiate to make it fair. What's on paper, on that administrative code, no matter what we do or what the city do, as what the George said, it cannot be changed because it's a law. And contracts can't change law. So that's the main reason why I am against this, and I thank you for allowing me to talk on the subject.
Harry, just one point of comment.
So you're pretty much on the same page as this guy.
Smart man, because he absolutely knows, and even the other gentleman that he had said he'd been on the job for something like 40 something years. They know what was given up to have what they have. To strip that away from you when you're getting ready to retire, they're looking at this as their future. How could you be now taking away a benefit that I earned and plan to go into and you're taking it away from the people that counted on this, that are already retired, that can't afford the changes that you're making, and that don't make anywhere near what you make. You know, when you look back at some of those salaries that those people made yesterday, you know, $7, $10, $15,000, compared to what these guys make today, $75, $85, $100,000, that's a total huge difference. They're not even thinking about that because they're only thinking about themselves.
I think he also mentioned juniors, so maybe the way he's looking at it, he's thinking that they will change things for retirees and then make the newer employees a different class, that the junior employees a different class that they will offer reduced benefits to.
Right.
Yeah.
And why keep reducing this whole theory of attrition bargaining, where you have a finite value and you have to give up something that you have to get something else? It doesn't make any sense.
You know, he also brought something up though that seems like a tricky issue, which is like how much do these laws have teeth? Like he's saying there's the Taylor law. There are all these things that say that the city's supposed to negotiate, and the city's supposed to meet the terms of contracts,
right.
But they don't always. Like what kind of teeth does the law have here?
Well, so he was referencing back in the 70s when the city was in a grave financial crisis. There was a financial act that allowed them. It's a New York State Emergency Financial Act. If this is the same thing he's talking about, the state came in the 70s and basically took over the city's finances and put pause on all those contracts, on everything that had been negotiated, and stopped it to try to make sure that the city was salvageable.
You're talking about the emergency, when he was mentioning the emergency
Finance Act.
Yeah, the Emergency Finance Act. Yeah, I'm
not 100% if that's exactly what he's talking about, but I'm familiar with this because I've read about this during the Koch administration. Preceding the Koch administration, prior to the Koch administration, the city was in dire financial straits, and they had asked the federal government, for help, help bail out the city. And there was that headline, I guess, where President Ford basically said to the city, "Drop dead, like we're not helping bail you out." But the state came in with the Financial Act and took over the city's finances. The city was over $11 billion in debt in 1970 something. So when you think about that, we're not anywhere near that. We're not in any dire financial crisis, but should costs be reined in? Of course they should be. But see, this $600 million in savings was something that came about because of a collective bargaining agreement. It was a bad deal by the teachers union. They caused this to happen. That's how it came about. They pulled out this number out of I don't know where. But that number is because a union agreed to it. The unions, the MLC, agreed to it and said, this is what we'll give you on a recurring basis, $600 million a year recurring. So now they have to find where they're going to come up with $600 million a year.
Okay, I think we're getting into talking about the fund, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you're referring to? Repaying the healthcare
what they took out of it? Well, it would be, that was the basis of the agreement, was if they did. Yes, you could say that. You want me to say that for later?
Yeah, let's, because I think that's brought up later, so
okay.
maybe we'll get into it a little bit later. But yeah, just aside from the issue of emergency powers, and of course we've seen emergency powers do a lot in the state and the city in the past couple of years. But aside from that issue, he's just talking about the city breaking contracts and not negotiating when they're supposed to by law. And that is the case, right? That there have been lots of instances when agencies, when union workers are working out of contract because they're under an expired contract because
the city is not negotiating timely with them. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. But he also recognizes, as did Mr. Troman, the other gentleman, that that they have the ability to go through impasse and arbitration. And this gentleman even said, you know, you're so focused on contracts, you shouldn't be just focused on this. I mean, you need to be focused on all of these issues, the social issues surrounding this, not just the dollar signs, because the larger theory with this, and he's said this before in other instances where, you know, union leaders have said this before, where if you focus just on wage and I want a 3% raise, I want a 5% raise, but then they jack up your insurance premiums, you're just turning around giving it back to the city. So what's the point of negotiating a contract for a wage increase when on this hand, and then on this hand, you're giving it right back to the city in forms of healthcare premiums and co-pays and co-insurances? What's the point? You just negotiated your money back to the city. You've got to look at the big picture. Sometimes it's not always just about wage. And so when I try to educate young people that, you know, years ago, under the different administrations, there were years when retirees, current retirees, negotiated away their wages. We didn't take a raise. We went several times without a raise. And under Giuliani, we used to call it zeros for heroes because we went 2 years with no wage increase. And even though he called us his heroes, well, he wasn't giving us anything. So how can you, we knew that if that's what it took to save ourselves, if that's what it took was to give up 2 years of wage increases. And I think even the Independent Budget Office talks something like a year of wage, if you give up a year of wage increases would save something like $1 billion. Well, gee. You know, if not a year, do 6 months. Do like 6 months this year and 6 months next year. Do something to save your future. But you can't be greedy. And that's what his point was, is you're focused on contracts. They can be canceled or you're going to end up giving the money right back in another avenue.
Right. Okay.
Clarification for the group. Right now, there are other retiree plans besides senior care that people can choose to go and pay up for. That's been in existence for decades.
We have more hands up. We're going to take.
How many more hands we got? Because
Harry, we have 4 more hands up. We're going to take those and then move on.
yeah, we have to.
But
discuss
take the
other
time.
one.
Yes. Dave Nicholson. Carmen, I see you, Carmen. You're next.
Good morning, everyone. We sent a letter, and this is for just one record in advance of any vote. We sent a letter last night to Commissioner Campion, Dr. Harry Foley, and Claire Levitt, objecting to the imposition of any of these changes on PTA members. All of the changes that are being presented here today, the change to the administrative code, and the other changes that I guess we're going to speak about after this. For all the reasons set forth in the letter, we're not going to participate in this vote. And we reserve all of our rights with respect to these issues. Furthermore, we want to just let you know that we object to Harry signing any letter agreement with a campaign regarding the changes to the legislation. We don't think he has the authority to do so, does not have the parties to the PTA, or any other union for that matter, except his own. So that's what I want on the record. As I said, when it comes to the vote,
You know,
Carmen Charles.
Good morning. I'm wearing my 2 hats and making this comment. As the leader of the union, I'm concerned about this conversation right here. I'm very conflicted I know that our benefits and whatever happens at the MLC affects our wage increases. So, as somebody who has to represent some of the lowest paid in the city, I'm concerned about this conversation. As my other hat is retiring training in Wasting. We already gave up the office, and I don't want the leaders and the negotiators of MLC coming up with a plan where I pay for my health care. There has always been a point for retirees to pay for their health care. And as somebody who generously utilizes her drug benefits, I don't want to have to pay anything else when I retire. We already gave her the office. Union members have always sacrificed to save the stabilization fund. When are we going to move away from this? We're saying we got to extend the contract to save the stabilization fund. We have to do this to save the. How much more can our members sacrifice? And what do we have to show for it? I would like to see one day before I leave this organization that we are not continually making a sacrifice. Why does union members have to bend over backwards? Why? This is just for me. It's giving me a whole lot of agitation. I have to tell you guys, this as a president and as a retiree in waiting, call me selfish, but this is getting to be, this conversation is making me very nervous. So, for the negotiators of MLC, please take this into consideration. I would love for my members, I would love for you to work out a deal where retirees don't have to pay for their health care, and we want a deal where our members can get a decent health wage increase because we don't have to sacrifice because of the weather. And meeting before you guys take a vote, I will give Henry my promise.
Thank you, Carmen.
All right. There it is, the stabilization fund. I think we can get into that a little bit now. She was saying, you know, how much do we have to keep sacrificing for this stabilization fund? So in a nutshell, explain what happened with the stabilization fund.
So the Stabilization Fund was founded in like 1984, 1986, and it was meant to be able to equalize the rate between two health plans to provide at a minimum two health plans for free. And so that was HIP and GHI Senior Care, right? So whenever the HIP plan was higher, money would go into the fund. Whenever the GHI rate was higher, money would come out to equalize it so both plans were the same, you know, both plans were free. Free to the employee and free to the retiree. And what else comes out of that? The city puts money into it. Contractually, it's like $35 million a year. The unions take money out of it, use it for the welfare funds as well. That each union gets a little bit of money out of it. And unfortunately, the fund has also been used like a slush fund, and this is as determined by the Independent Budget Office as well as the controllers, both the last one and the current one. And so as long as the mayor and the MLC agree to using the money in the fund, then it comes out. And there really are no provisions on how the hell to put it back. So that's been what's happening. And then that fund gets spent down. So the rumors you'll hear flying around, like you had mentioned before, well, the insurance is astronomical and the retirees are draining it. No, that's not really all true. It's because in 2014, they allowed $1 billion to come out of the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund to pay for teachers' raises. The city and the unions have been using this. The MLC have been using this like a slush fund. If the city needed to plug a budget gap, they took cash out of it. The same thing with the Retiree Health Benefit Trust, which is very similar to the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund. And why is it that something this important is funded this way, so half-assed and allowed to be used like a slush fund? This just makes no sense. So when they want to defend that the money is coming out, that PICA is another plan that's a benefit. It's psychotropic, injectable, cancer, and asthma drugs. These four drugs, also they call it the PICA plan, come out of the stabilization fund. When you put it all together, there's a lot of different benefits that do come out of it, and the city does fund some of these things, funds a lot of it actually. But it's how it's been misused is the problem. So they can blame it on a whole bunch of things, but if they're not being transparent, and this is the one thing we've asked for, we filed a FOIL request on this darn fund. No one seems to have an accounting. No one can tell us exactly where all the money is. No one can tell us where it went, who took it, when it goes out, how often it goes out, how often it goes in, if it goes in. And I filed a FOIL with the controller and it was denied. And I was told to refile it, hopefully, with OMB, Office of Management and Budget, and OLR, Office of Labor Relations, and then maybe they would be able to give me some information. That was months ago. I still don't have an answer. for something so important.
But they're saying that there's a huge deficit.
Yes. However, we were given information the other day that it's not a deficit. We were told that there's at least $1 billion into that fund. And maybe if we can get Mr. Mulgrew to put the $1 billion he took out of it back in, then maybe we'd be okay. Or they should come up with some creative negotiating to fund it in other ways.
All right.
Okay, we have Frank Rocha. Saul, you're the last one. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ellen. I want to just start with, I appreciate the work and the comments made by Michael and Henry, and I understand how difficult these decisions have to be. The tech committee, I don't know how they do it. They do a tremendous job. But just to go back to Einstein's quote that was mentioned earlier, allowing ourselves to be pushed into another corner and forcing us to make only one move again and again isn't smart either. If the worry here is the stabilization fund, which it is, this doesn't fix it. It's only a Band-Aid. It'll reoccur again and again, just as your Carmen Charles said. This is our Achilles tendon. We have to figure out a way to solve this problem in perpetuity, if we can. Amending the administrative code also empowers the city to force the MLC to swallow another quick fix in the future. Not just for current retirees, but I think it leverages it that they potentially could do it for actives and any dependents also. If I'm reading the amended changes correctly, at the end, I'd like to hear if I am or I'm not. To say that they have to negotiate with us brings us back again to what's happening to us now. We're being forced up against the wall to make only one decision, and that doesn't solve the problem. Aiming that we're fighting to maintain no premium increases. This just means we'll have to ultimately diminish benefits to everyone. Ultimately, because if we don't fix the problem, that's what will happen. This is our future. It's in our own making if we don't fix this problem. I also want to comment, I completely agree with PSC's assessment on the matter. And respectfully, I'm going to have to vote no on this also. Thank you.
Again, the RFP is designed to continue efforts so that we don't lose what we have.
Thank you, Ellen. We're the last one, Saul Fishman.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. First, this is a difficult situation. It's not going away anytime soon. Clearly, what we're talking about today is going to may buy some time, and I understand it saves the imposition of our premiums now on our actives. I think someone mentioned earlier, maybe it was Henry, maybe I'm not sure, something like, was it like $1,800 or something? If we were to accept this, in any event, as opposed to the majority of the retirees I hear from, who insist that they're not comfortable with anything short of the senior care that they've enjoyed, if we don't change the administrative code, then if we do, and they have to pay for it, they pay what, an extra, was it like $3,000? Do we know? Because yes, we are retirees in training. I realize there is no easy choice, and as Frank Rocha and others say that this is not. It'll be the end of the picture. We have it addressed. I don't know if that's the next thing you're planning to speak about it, Harry, but we still have to get to the stabilization fund. I recognize that, when I stop talking, there'll be a vote, and given that both Henry Garrido and Mike Mulgrew supporting this, it's going to pass. Let's be realistic here. I'm not sure the options. I wish there were, but I'd like to upfront know what it means if we accept this dollar-wise for our actives and what we don't. for our retirees. And many of us in this room are but a few years away from joining those ranks. And yes, we salute their hard work that they've done us to where we are. What it means for them as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ellen? Yes, Henrik. Go ahead.
I have my hand on this. I don't know who was there. Just like to respond.
No, we're closing it out.
Okay, so folks, there are a couple of things that have been said that I think need to be said. Well, first of all, it's important for us to own our own mistakes. Whether, hindsight is always 20/20. But we each union have been taking $165 out of this fund since 2014 for actors and retirees. The reason we were able to cover retiree prescription, the reason why the PICA program has risen to $500 million still has no premium. So let's not pretend that this is something that came out of nowhere.
You can hit it. You want to hit the buzzer? Tell me what you think.
It's not $500 million. The PICA plan has not gone up to $500 million. That was in one of the documents that was shared with us last week. That is the frustrating thing. He is misleading the expenditures, and that's part of the. You know what the other issue is? Right here. He is a principal in this organization. Why is Henry, Harry, and Michael not sharing all of the detailed data of this fund with all of these principals, all of these unions? Why are the last two speakers, Doctors Council Frank Proscia and Saul Fishman from Civil Service Bar Association, still have the numbers he has are incorrect. The information that he has is incorrect. They both don't agree with this. They both don't like it. They know something's wrong. These are two smart men that they're not given accurate, detailed, itemized information to work with. It doesn't make any sense. And then for him to go saying that, and I'll tell you that document that was shared with us for the Stabilization Fund shows that there's almost $1 billion in that fund today, and that the PICA plan is nowhere near. The PICA plan expenses are not $500 million. This is the frustrating part, because everyone should know this. This information should be given out freely to all of these union presidents. That's the aggravating thing.
What's the bottleneck? What do you think? Why do you think they don't have it? Is it the city? Is it the heads of the MLC?
It's the heads of the MLC. You heard Mr. Klinger before. He said, "Well, we don't know if we want to give that out to everybody. It might end up in the Daily News or the New York Post." But you are the head of an organization. If I ran my organization like that, I'd be hung to death. You can't run a group and not share all of this information. Well, things leak. Things will always leak. I mean, things leak everywhere. They even leak on the federal level. But the thing is if you're not transparent, if you don't share everything, what are you hiding? And why are you hiding it?
In terms of things leaking about funding and budgets and money, shouldn't that all be public information anyway?
You raise such a good point, because it's tax dollars. This is tax dollars. This should be public.
Yes. Yeah. This is all from tax revenue. This is city budget. Yeah.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Yes. Yes. And when I call the independent budget office and I say, "Hey, do you have an accounting of the Stabilization Fund or the city's welfare funds?" And they're like, "No, they don't give us that stuff." I'm like, how could you not? Why isn't someone saying, "Hey, that's my tax dollars, buddy. How come, how come? Where's it going?" If you were to say to me that the Stabilization Fund is bankrupt, I'd say, "Show me. I want to see the checkbook. Tell me what happened. Why am I just hearing now that there's a problem now?" And it's so dire. We can't have an intellectual, factual conversation. I got to make a decision like this now. And I can't see any documents. Just do what I tell you.
Yeah.
shady.
care that we're passing it on. They've been doing this. They get $100 million, right? Rightfully or wrong, that has been handled, right? Secondly, we have thousands of people who are taking advantage of the pickup program. Chemotherapy, drugs, injectable medications that as of July 1st, there's no funding for. So if you're going to vote no, and you can, that's the democratic process, up or down, I would suggest respectfully that you have a solution, an alternative, right? Because we've been at this for years. And there is no 10,000 debt retirees that we're paying premiums for. We looked at this. We did the audit. There is no $35 per retiree that we're paying over. That is a false argument for somebody who's saying, well, we don't want to have to do this. There is no premium on Medicare Advantage. So you're saying that they're paying the difference. There is no premiums for Medicare Advantage. That's false. We're not doing that, right? The HIP people that are there in HIP VIP remain in HIP VIP. So if you want to say this is dangerous, we don't want to amend the administrative code, that's fine. We're taking too much of risk. I get that. But let us not start repeating solutions or alternatives because we don't want to do this that are false in their argument. And I think that the most dangerous thing we can do here is do nothing. You can vote yes, you can vote no, but you can vote your conscience. But if you do, make sure you understand that what you're betting for or against. Because the status quo is just simply not an option in my view.
Thank you. Harry, I just want to, in terms of changing the administrative code, again, it really is us saying, no, judge, you don't, if there's a judge, first time ever, who's going to rule on this interpretation of the administrative code, doesn't matter that the city lawyer answered or all the rest of it. We can't let that stand. Because basically what the judge said is, the only guarantee you have is one plan, minimum HMO, that's it. And that's just cannot stand because there's no reason that means we don't have HIP. There's a scenario where we wouldn't have HIP in senior care. We just have the HIP. So let's just talk about the technical aspect of all we're doing is fortifying our rights that we thought we had and we believe we still have, but we have to correct this, and we're going to correct it in a way so that no judge can misinterpret it again. That's what we're doing with the administrative code. We are not near a deal with Aetna. We have a long way to go. We got a lot of work to do there if we want to go there. And the plans that we've designed for our retirees absolutely have all of the benefits they've always had. Yes, they're going to have a prior authorization, but it's not going to be anything like it's already been made out to be. Because let's be honest, politics is vicious, zero-sum, and there are people out there who will lie to do anything to get whatever they think they should get. The judge ruled clearly that there is the only thing the city is obligated for is that HMO rate, and that's because we have that in the administrative code. We need to keep that solid, that we can move and use that HMO rate as a basis to do other things. In terms of if we do nothing, the 8 years that we've done all of these changes to keep us premium free with people of which I'm amazed we've been able to get because of the increases in healthcare are growing much faster than they ever have before. And that's where our fight really has to be in terms of dealing with that in the political phase, because you can no longer just continue this. Stabilization fund, look, there's a lot of our members taking a lot of benefits out of that. We want them. That's why we fight for that stabilization fund. So our members have these benefits. Doing nothing means that we're dealing with some sort of a scenario where we might go to arbitration, we might not, whatever. In the end, if we don't do something where we're going to continue this path of saying we're going to continue to fight, but also lobby at the same time, then we know what we're looking at. It's premium. And it'll be premium. Right now, you have scenarios where there's premium on in-service, our active members right now, not the retirees. And you won't, politically, that'll turn into a mess also. So we have to do the thing, continue to do the things, and they're tough. They're not easy. I get quite a few emails from our retirees, and I've had numerous live in-person meetings with them. So I understand the pressure we're all feeling. But to do this work and to continue to try to fight to keep our benefits, but to use our intelligence and to really go after the people, the bad actors in healthcare, is something we're going to have to, that's the work that has to be done. And this is just another challenge.
Okay. That was Mulgrew, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you were waving the buzzer there. Some of the things he was saying, you are saying are just false, right?
I thought it was interesting that he said that they had to keep the hip rate solid and move on because they needed to use that as the basis for other things, right? So what did that mean? Like he's going to negotiate that away later on, just not today, why would you say it, why would you say it that way? That's crazy. It's everything that he's saying. It's misleading. The judge didn't say you had to have one plan. The judge didn't say that. The judge said that the city had to pay up to the HIP HMO rate for any plan that was on the table. And if the plans that we had were under the cap, the city had to pay for them. There's your choice. There's your benchmark. That's it. The judge didn't strip away your collective bargaining. He didn't strip away your benefits. He didn't do any of that. What he did say in the spoken part of his decision, they call it dicta. It's not legally binding, but it's just how he was thinking about his decision. The decision's at the bottom of like this 3-page document. So on like pages 2 and page 3. And he basically says that the city has to pay for any plan up to the cap. And he said, I'm not saying that the city has to offer more than one plan, but if you offer all these other plans and you have to pay up to the cap. The city can't take away all those other plans. Remember, under the 92 agreement, they have to negotiate all the plans. And they still have all of these contracts with them. And according to one of the other agreements, they're supposed to be, and I think it's even in the 92 agreement, they're supposed to be looking at other plans like every 5 years, which they hadn't done. So the judge didn't take away anything. He affirmed what's been on the record. And if it was so horrible and you had no choices and there was all these other issues, wouldn't they have popped up sooner than the last 55 years? They hadn't. But they need to sell this off.
So what was he saying? He was also saying this thing again about if we don't do anything, there will be premiums. If we don't do something, we're going to be forced to charge premiums. How, like,
that's the
what is the but how would that happen? How is he saying that would come about?
That then there'll be premiums if they do nothing.
Yeah.
Because they have a lack of foresight, creativity, where they're trying to figure how is the fastest way we can plug this hole. Let's just charge premiums on everybody. Cash, poof. They need a fast cash influx.
But how would that work under the current administrative code? The current administrative code says the city has to pay the full amount.
It won't.
Which means no premiums.
There are no premiums unless no, you're right. Yes, there's this is the craziness.
So I don't understand.
There can't be premiums if there's a cap. As long as you have the cap, that everything has to be paid up to the HIP HMO rate. As long as HIP is the rate, there are no premiums if all the other plans are up to that rate. If HIP ends up being $10 and you decide to choose, like, look at how the city manipulated that rate, that HIP VIP rate or the Medicare eligible rate. If they wanted to take a rate that was $200 and tomorrow make it $10, and they could do that with this new provision. With the new proposed code, provision in the code, they can peg any rate that they want to any class of people. The current code prevents this from happening. The current code, you have whatever plans the city has on its repertoire. The city has to pay up to that HIP HMO rate, $925 today. You change that, you diminish it. plans, I don't know if you ever look at plans on the marketplace, the American Care Act, you look on AARP's website, whatever. You look on the marketplace for healthcare plans, they're not $10. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
So allowing them to peg a rate that is something ridiculous, equaling a cost of a cup of coffee, and saying that's the benchmark plan for you. If you don't take that cheap plan, then you have to pay the premium for everything else. And that is what will happen if they change the code. Mulgrew is not making any sense when he says if we do nothing, premiums are on the table. Well, they're on the table to talk about, but the only way to get to them is you have to change the law. If you don't change the law, you're protected. And this is why all of the smart people, Frank Proscia from the Doctors Council, James Davis from the Public Professional Staff Congress, Saul Fishman from the Civil Service Bar Association said, don't do this. And yet a teacher, a clerk, a sanitation guy want to tell you they know better than a professor, a doctor, and an attorney. It sounds like a bad joke. 3 men walked into a bar.
Are they? I was going to say, are they in a bar? Okay.
I know, it's like Larry, Moe, and Curly. I don't know. This defies logic. Does this not make any sense? This makes no sense. Don't change the code. If you don't change the code, then you have a protection up to you know what the limit is.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
Does that make sense?
Thank you, Mike. Harry, there's 2 quick messages in the chat.
It's got to be the end. We have a whole agenda, one way or the other.
Okay.
Let's get to two in a chat.
Okay. John Hislop, I agree with everyone on messaging. The MLC needs a unified message on where our healthcare comes from, its problems, and how the MLC is trying to save and protect it. If we support administrative code change, we should send a message very soon. The other one is Tom Cazzo. What happens if the MLC votes to pass the amendment of the administrative code and doesn't pass in the 2 hearing dates? What happens then? Will we still be in the same position? What will happen if the majority votes no? What is plan B? And that's the end of it.
If the majority votes no, then Simon will probably start to act as the chair of tripartite and order something, because he recognizes the city is out $600 million to $1 billion, depending upon when you call the question.
Okay, what's he talking about?
So under that 2018 agreement, the MLC agreement, the unions agreed to $600 million in recurring savings. Because our lawsuit, the judge declared that charging retirees a penalty premium where their plans were under the cap was illegal. And that as long as the plans were on the table and these were options, that the city had to pay for these plans. And as I said, our plans are inexpensive. So the agreement was that they would put all the retirees, auto-enroll them and force them into that Medicare Advantage plan. And if they didn't want to be into it, they would be paying to opt out. Thereby, the city would no longer have to pay anything for any Medicare eligible retiree, thereby saving $600 million, which was a bloated figure in itself because it was a lot lower than that based upon how many retirees are Medicare eligible and would have either gone into the plan or opted out of the plan and paid the premium. So they were averaging about 250,000 Medicare eligible retirees. It was really more like 180,000. And if you just round the number up from the cost of the plan to $200 a month, and you use their bloated figures, the 250,000 retirees times $200 a month is $50 million a month times 12 is $600 million. Since the judge declared their funding mechanism illegal, they couldn't secure the $600 million savings that they had hoped to by auto-enrolling everyone into these Medicare Advantage plans. It's now almost 2 years. And so when he said that Scheinman would have to take control of the tripartite committee, which is a committee in the MLC, and he would have to decide something because he recognizes that the city is out, $600 million to $1 billion, depending upon when you call the question. Because he wanted them to stop the clock, because the clock keeps ticking as the days and weeks go by. They still owe the city what they promised, $600 million in recurring savings annually. And so call the question, tell them, stop the clock, get the MLC to agree to do all these crazy things. And that would be, from what he said before, the path forward to the city not have to, for the city to eat the $1 billion that it's owed, meaning the city knows that the unions and the MLC owe the city almost $1 billion. And we're willing to forgive your $1 billion debt if you change that code, put those retirees into that horrible Medicare Advantage plan, put out an RFP for the active plan and replace their plan to probably something equally as lousy, and then do all these other things we'll talk about later, then you're out of debt. We washed away your debt.
Can you explain exactly what the tripartite commission is?
I wish I knew. That's another secret squirrel commission. There's like 3 committees within the MLC. One's the tripartite, one's the steering, and one's the technical. They don't tell you who's on them, and if they're on them, no one admits to it. And it's secret. And tripartite, from my understanding, and I don't know if you ever get Harry Nespoli on here, maybe he'd be able to tell you. The tripartite committee, I believe, is like 3 people. It's a representative from the MLC, a representative from the city, and Mr. Scheinman, the arbitrator. Tripartite, 1, 2, 3, and that's all I really could really tell you. I honestly don't even know who the parties are, what they talk about. I don't know if there's minutes. I don't know anything about it. Steering committee, we know the steering committee, I think is like 17 or 18 people. It's all, I think the way I've been told, it's like all of the people on the letterhead, all of those unions have it. But I don't ever see anything official from them. The MLC doesn't have a website. There's no real way to communicate with them. They don't put out their information. They don't share their minutes. It's hard to tell you those answers. I even foiled that from labor relations. I got a single document from 1966, which was their incorporating document, what founded them by law. And then the second document was governing guidelines. That was from 1966 with the last update in 2008. And that's all they gave me. They told me nothing else existed. Then they said, oh, there's one more thing. And it was a photocopy that was photocopied so many times from the 60s that the paper looked like a bunch of dots and I could barely make out the words. That was it. They won't even tell me who's in the MLC. I asked them for a list of unions. They told me we can't tell you, it's secret.
Interesting. I mean, I guess it isn't a government organization.
Well, it kind of is. They're collectively bargaining with the city for citywide benefits that are funded by tax dollars. Mm-hmm. Tell me how there's no sunlight in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to crack that nut open.
Well, I think that's what we're doing right now. All right.
Okay. It's yours, Harry.
All right, where's Greenberg? Right here. All right. So the motion right now, all right? I'm going to call a question, and I'll begin it with the Allied Building Inspectors. How do you vote?
I don't believe
Yes.
it.
Change, Harry, can you explain? Let's get it clear. You say yes. So we want to approve the change to the administrative code. Yes? Martin? No? No. Thank you. Allied building inspectors,
So much clearer.
They're not present.
Amalgamated Transit,
Not present.
Atlantic Maritime Group of Masters, Mates, and Pilots,
Richie Russo.
I'm sorry,
It's Richie Russo. He's on.
well, he has to say something. Mr. Russo, you're on, please let us know how you vote.
And he dropped off.
Okay? International Brotherhood of Boilermakers. Captains and Gammon Association. Chris?
Yeah, I need to know.
Okay. Carpenters and Joiners.
Yes.
Local 270, I'm sorry, City Employees Union Local 237.
We have
Yes.
a proxy and they vote yes.
Civil Service Bar Association. Tom?
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, we got
I
it.
have it on here. Yes.
Civil Service Forum Local 300.
Yes.
Civil Service Painters Local 1969.
I have to abstain.
Committee of Interns and Residents. Local 1180.
Yes.
What is it?
Yes. Yes.
Hey. Local 1181.
Not yet.
Local 1181. Local 1182. Local 1182. Local 1183.
Yes.
Correction Captains Association.
Vote no.
Correction Officers Benevolent.
Vote yes.
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 Council of Supervisors and Administrators.
We have a proxy. They vote yes.
Detectives and Diamond Association.
Yes, boy.
Yes, we vote yes. Sorry, excuse me, we vote no. Excuse me. Detective Investigators Association. Detective Investigators Association. Doctors Council. We vote no. Local 1199. Local 1199. IBEW Local 3.
Abstained.
What is it?
Abstained.
Is local 3 a yes or a no?
They're abstaining.
Okay. EMS
And this guy's an attorney.
Superior Officers. EMS Superior Office. Fire alarm dispatchers. Fire alarm dispatchers. Tenants Benevolent Association.
We vote no, Harry.
Marine Engineer Association. Engineers. New York City Sheriff's Association. New York City Deputy Sheriff Association.
And they're not present.
Local 246.
Yes.
New York State Nurses Association.
Yes.
Operating engineers local 14 and 14B. Operating engineers local 15. Operating engineers local 30. Yes. Operating engineers local 891. Organization of staff analysts.
Bob Krogan,
Richard Grant, yes. Thomas Bedell and Associate.
As I stated before, we're not participating in this vote.
Is that a no?
No, we're not participating. I don't recognize the authority of the MLC.
I'm participating.
They don't recognize the authority of the MLC, is that what they said?
Highway sewer inspector.
Harry, they're not present.
Okay.
That's some background noise.
Professional staff Congress.
I know.
You can't hear it. No. No? Is that a no? No.
That was a no.
Sanitation officers local 444. Yes. Sergeant Bedell and Associate. That's a no. Steve Minutes local 638. Steve Minutes local 638. Supervisors local 621 SCIU. Yes. Transport workers union local 100. Local 100. UCE of FIT local 3457. Local 3457. Uniform Fire Officers Association. No. Uniform Firefighters Association.
Marty, go ahead. You have any questions?
We vote no. Uniform Sanitation Association. Yes. Uniform Sanitation Chiefs.
Iggy, is that right?
I say yes. You
Yes on UFT.
Yes.
United Probation Officers.
Yes.
Okay, this is for
Jerry, before we go to DC 37, I think Richard Russo is on.
Just too much background noise. Yeah, about AMG wants that stay.
Okay, thank you.
Which one is he?
Atlantic, now it's Rangoon.
Maritime States.
Yes.
Local, this is DC 27. Local 154.
Local 154, yes.
Local 299. Local 299. Local 371. Yes. Local 372. Yes. Local 374.
Henry, you have the proxy.
Local 374 votes yes.
Local 375.
Absolutely yes.
Local 376.
Local 376, absolutely yes.
Local 384.
Yes.
Local 420.
Henry, you have the proxy.
Yes.
Local 436.
She was the one that spoke out.
Local 436, 461. Local 508.
Henry, you have the proxy.
508 votes yes.
68.
768 votes yes.
Local 924.
No.
Local 957.
Yes.
Local 983.
Yes.
Local 107. Local 1070. Local 1087. Local 1087. Local 1113. Local 1113. Local 1157. Local 1157. Local 1189.
Henry, you have the proxy?
Yes.
Local 1251.
Yes.
Local 1306. Local 1306. Local 1320.
Yes, sir.
Henry,
Yes.
Henry, before we go to third one, local 1157 is counted for. He votes in fact, he votes yes.
Local 1306.
No.
Local 1320.
1320, yes.
Local 1321.
Yes.
Local 1322.
Yes.
Local 1407.
Yes.
Local 275. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Local 1455.
Yes.
Local 1482. 1482. Local 1501. Local 1501. Local 1502. Local 1502. Local 1503. 1503. Local 1505. Local 1505. Local 1506. Local 1506. Local 1507. Local 1507. Local 1508.
Henry, you have the proxy?
We vote yes.
Local 1549. Local 1549. Local 1597.
Yes.
Local 1655.
Local 1655, Hesseltine votes yes.
Okay. Local 1740.
Henry, you have the proxy?
We vote yes.
Local 1757. Local
Yes.
Yes. Local 1797. Local 1797. Local 1930. Local 1930. Local 1931. Local 1931. Local 30. Sorry. Local 2054. Local 2054. Local 2507.
No.
Local 2627.
Yes.
Local 1305.
No, 308.
3005.
Yes.
Local 3621. Local 3621.
Yes.
Yes. Local 3652. Local 3652. Local 3778.
Local 3778 votes yes.
Okay, gotta tally this up.
Okay, Harry, Tom Ryan, just identify yourself and your vote.
Yes. Tom Ryan, Boilermakers Local 5. Vote yes.
My patience.
On the first page. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So Harry Nismoli, while Harry Greenberg challenged, why don't we do very quickly two of the maybe three items that we'll have one. Two of the items are for informational purposes, if the steering committee, and the Harry one and the leaders wanted us to review. And one you heard already is that Edna was the second place finisher on Medicare Advantage with Empire's withdrawal. The city procurement office says that if Edna is willing to maintain the bid that they have put in, negotiations could start with them, so long as they were not beginning bid. Those negotiations have started, and just like it was said that they'll be pursued, but there's no decision on that yet. It will come back from the officers to a vote, just like it did with the alliance, if an agreement can be reached there. The other part is also for informational, that we have worked with the technical committee, and we've made reference to that there was an RFI, request for information, that was issued. There were, I think, approximately 8 responses. We had looked to see whether the incumbents, Empire and Emperor, would put in guaranteed savings that would be brought to avoid the time expensive RFP. That did not satisfactorily happen. So Harry Nismoli appointed a committee of fund directors to work with Siegel on producing an RFP. There has been a draft done by Milliman, the city's healthcare consultants. That has been distributed to Siegel and the committee that Harry appointed. And we have comments from Siegel and comments already from some of the fund directors. There will be a meeting on that, and then a meeting with the city. And then it looks like there will be an RFP issued to try and do what some of you have advocated on the call, was to create sort of a new dynamic for that, but preserving a lot of the good things that we have. So that again is for informational purposes. So Harry, it's those two you wanted the general membership to know. The last item that was part of the agenda for the special meeting, and again, this is part of what the tripartite committee has worked on. You've heard about these possibilities at prior meetings. Technical committee, steering, and general membership is what Harry and the leaders, the MLC officers, wanted, was a vote that passed, significantly passed the steering committee to recommend to general membership. And it's a package of savings that, again, Simon is using to basically tell the city that they have to keep going and keeping the benefits, but that there are some changes that doesn't cure everything, but it ameliorates in part the situation. These are that we resume having new hires go into the HIP HMO for their first year, like they did for several years. And we know from the reports that Emblem has done that approximately 95% of the people who went into it have stayed. There was an issue raised by Bob Krogan at the meeting, was that, look, that the drug rider for those in the HIP HMO was more expensive than it was for those in GHI. We went back to Emblem on this, and 2 issues have come up. One is that the costs are significantly down from where they were several years ago, but Bob was correct that there was a difference between GHI and the HIP HMO. And we went back to Emblem about this, and Bob this morning, Emblem emailed that they will make the cost of the riders the same at the GHI level, and that every year there's a new schedule to begin. The HIP HMO is part of the package. Part of the package is that there'll be a preferred network for urgent care centers. We went to urgent care centers, incentivized that so people could go to more expensive emergency rooms. But then the urgent care centers' prices went up, the costs went up. And what Emblem is negotiating is preferred networks, where actually all the urgent care centers are in the preferred network, but for Go Health, City MD is now in the preferred pricing. Emblem believes that once Go Health finds out that they're the only one in that state, they may come around. But this would be something that would reduce spend on that. Same thing for radiology centers, that they will be the preferred network for that. And the fourth item of the package is that a number of years ago, Montefiore was granted a preferred status for doctors because there wasn't the bronze docs and other event services that are available there. Montefiore, Emblem tells us, is quite expensive. And so the proposal is to have Montefiore treated just like all the others and not have preferred status. There's a twofold savings associated with that. One is on the direct cost for the providers, and two, not surprisingly, the Montefiore providers refer people to the expensive Montefiore healthcare system. So there would be, a savings on that. So that is the package of 4 that the general membership is being asked to approve. And then that would go into effect, hopefully on 10/1 or as soon as that could be. And that's part of what Simon is saying is sort of labor's responsibility in order to keep, the fact that this city is owed $600 million to keep them on board with current programs. The last item, which Simon worked out, and again, informational purposes for you, it was presented at the last meeting that because the stabilization fund is out of money, the stabilization fund can't pay the city the $112 million that is supposed to come out to it. Correspondingly, according to Siegel, about 8% of your welfare fund money comes from the stabilization fund. That is also being put on hold by this. The time frame that we worked out is for the balance of the fiscal year, which means that the city got none of its money, but your welfare funds got part of it. And so that will, and that is part of what Simon said needs to be. It will be decided as we get towards the end of the fiscal year, depending in part on what the RFP produced, is Harry, whether that money was deferred or whether that money is just forgiven. And so that we'll see how the RFP goes. The other thing is that Simon has raised the possibility, and MLC leadership is looking at this, is from the city savings of constructing a fund. If an amount of money, if funds are in a distressed state, the belief is that because it's less than 8% of what it is, that hopefully isn't the case. But that is something that is being discussed. There's a formal agreement on that or a process, but that is a possibility for leadership of the city to consider. So under 4 being voted on because that was that is what we worked out the shot. Yes. And the steering committee overwhelmingly recommended it after significant discussion. Okay.
And any thoughts on all of that?
So the interesting thing about the stabilization fund is this isn't the first time the fund's fallen into some financial, issues. It's actually about the 4th time. And these were easily searchable when we were trying to show, various officials that this is not the first time that this fund has fallen into some financial problems. You can easily search them online between the Daily News, the New York Post, the New York Times, and the chief leader. So he's basically saying, you voted to change the code, but now these other 4 things we need you to consider would be to put new hires into the HIP HMO plan, take Montefiore out of the preferred network. Emblem said, because Emblem said that Montefiore was very expensive, the costs there were high, they narrowly gave you a network of radiology providers and urgent care networks. So when we talk about givebacks and diminishment of benefit, that's exactly what they did here. If you live in New York City, you can go anywhere for an x-ray. But if they only confine you to using this one company, which has a limited network and limited locations, that's a limitation, that's a give back. They're trying to say if you don't use this company, then you have to pay a higher coinsurance. And that they give back as a savings to the city, but who does it really cost is you. Now you're an employee, you live on Long Island, you work in the city, now you need an x-ray. But then the only places that maybe these have locations might be in the 5 boroughs. So you're either going to have to drive back to the 5 boroughs to go and get this x-ray, or you're going to get it local to your home and pay a high coinsurance. That's a give back, and it transfers the cost to you. And that's an employee. This is all on the employee plan. And then the same thing with the urgent care center. So what did they do a couple years ago? They increased the copay on hospitals to try to make you not go to the hospital. So it went from like $50 to like $300. And they wanted you to go to urgent cares. Now they're saying, we're going to tier urgent cares and put urgent cares in the network. And now if you don't use the urgent cares, we tell you there's going to be a coinsurance. What concerns me with taking Montefiore out of the preferred network, you're taking people that live in that immediate vicinity of that hospital out of the network. And if that is their closest hospital, they are now going to have to pay to go there. Why would you do that? And not negotiate with them or come up with a plan? It's the theme of this is transfer cost. Transfer from the city in the name of a give back, and you end up paying. Whether you're the employee or the retiree, doesn't matter. It's a cost transfer. So they call it a savings, but you're absorbing the cost. It's not a savings to you or me. Yeah, it's disturbing. It's disturbing. And they definitely show again that he's saying that as per the arbitrator, the conversations with the arbitrator, they have to do this in order for the city to eat the $1 billion. Like he keeps saying it. No one seems to push back on that either.
All right. Well, we've just got not too much left of this, so let's see what the bitter end holds for us.
So a motion needs to be made to approve those 4 items if someone so.
Yeah.
Move to support the 4 items mentioned.
Second.
Second by Joey. So you can move on to the discussion.
Who was the first person?
Is there any discussion on things? Yes, by the steering committee. I do have my hand raised, so I'm waiting to be ready. Go ahead, Al.
Bunch of hands raised. Go ahead.
Give your hand. So yes. Let's do a discussion on these items so we can get to a vote for that.
From yes, or that was from earlier?
That was from earlier.
Okay. Did you have motions?
Yes, thank you, Ellen. Just clarification, I might have missed it, but what was the RFP being issued for? I just didn't quite understand what that was being issued.
I'm sorry, Jeff. It's for to look at the overall health plans to see what people's ideas are. I mean, right now, what it's principally focusing on is the active plan.
Gotcha. Okay. My other simple question was, since you guys are already in somewhat of a negotiation with Aetna, when can we expect Aetna to do a presentation for us?
Once the group decides that it's something that they recommend.
Okay.
But Aetna will present. They have said that to us.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Marty Teague. Do you have your hand up?
That was from before.
Okay. Paul, do you have your hand up?
No, Alan, I didn't realize it went up. I didn't.
Okay. Donna Elevator, you have your hand up? Or that was from before. I'm good. Okay. Deborah Pitts?
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Did you hear me, Ellen? Did you hear me, Ellen? No, now I hear you.
Thank you, Alan. I don't know if I can do this, but can I call the question? Yes. Harry.
Before we go any further, there's an iPhone that's in the queue. Can you please identify iPhone? That's Gloria Middleton. No, not Gloria. Somebody just came in with an iPhone. That was Gloria. She had to leave off of the line. She just texted me, let me know, like her age to an iPhone. Okay, she's in, but she has to. Gloria, is that you? On the iPhone. Gloria, can you confirm that it's you on the iPhone?
Alan, this is Robin Roach. Is this a 646 number?
No.
Okay.
It's an iPhone.
Oh.
Okay. Well, the iPhone is dropped off. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom Custance.
Yes, ma'am. I asked, can we call the question?
Is it better now to ask, is anybody gonna vote no on this? And take no's? Or should we, I'm asking the legal end, or can we just go right down the list again? I'm sure people jumped off.
Go ahead, Robin. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, you have somebody who seems to be making a motion to call the question. That might take precedence at this time.
All right.
Here we go. I'm going to go through all the ones that didn't get from the first one. Allied building inspectors, amalgamated transit.
Point of information, please.
Sure.
Why do we do a roll call on calling the question? Why can't it be a vote, a hands or voice? Just curious.
That's what I asked you. Can we ask?
It's appropriate. You don't need to do a roll call on calling the question.
I'm happy to answer.
I think there was a motion to call the question, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Forgive me, I'm on the phone today.
And I'll second that. Okay, so you can turn around, and the way I understand, I'm not a lawyer, but you can say how many people are voting no.
Okay, before we continue, Harry, can we just be clear on what they're voting on?
Yes.
Debate on this issue. Right. So there are no further questions or discussions on it. That's what I think the maker of the motion intended, and he can speak up.
That's correct, Robin. I think you just go proceed with the vote.
And another point of information, Harry, I mean, you can just simply say, all those in favor of calling the question, and then we go yes, and then we go no, we get out of here.
That's it,
Okay, all those in favor of the question, please signify. Any no's?
Aye. Can you please identify yourself? Who said aye? I'm an aye.
Is that a no?
No, that's an aye.
Tonight. So are there any no's? PCA? No.
Who's the no?
PCA? PCA is a no. Anybody else? Right. Yes.
Excuse me. This is Dave Nicholson.
Dave Nicholson, what is it?
That was just to call the question. Now you're going to have a vote on the actual proposal. Is that what I'm doing?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
I don't even know what the hell they're
Do you want a roll call vote? Or do you want to do what we just did?
That's it.
All right. All those in favor of the question that's before you, please, if you voted yes, signify.
Yes.
What the hell is the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any no's?
Dave Nicholson again from the PBA. I just want to go on the record again. You're not participating in the vote for one reason, but for what reason.
Are there any abstentions?
Yes, C is abstaining.
TCA?
Yes.
I think before you want to abstain.
Not this council abstains.
Right. TCA, no? I got you. Anybody else? Yes.
Call for a motion to adjourn. For the special meeting. Second. I'll call another special meeting. But there's still a lot of work to get done. As soon as we get together. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. All right, take care, everybody. Go on.
That was special, all right. That's scary. That is scary that is how they'll do things.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some written indication accompanying that voting at the end, if they send in their votes so that it's clear.
No.
Because, wow, that seemed really
Chaotic. How the hell could they record that? And so when we had asked the last time we were told about a vote, because, you're retired, we're not following any of this stuff. This isn't our job. We're not in the loop on any of this. Then we were told that when they actually did the vote last July 2021, to do Medicare Advantage and force the retirees into it, that the vote was like what they just did at the end. It was described to us, and this is how it took, because I'd never heard it before until this, that it was described that was how they did that vote, to force the retirees into a Medicare Advantage plan and accept the Alliance as the plan. And that shows accountability? No. I mean, you heard the same people saying, aye. There used to be a crazy old saying, like unions, vote and vote often. And that sounded what that sounded like.
mm-hmm. Vote early, vote often is what
vote early and vote often. That's
yeah.
Because it's funny, they used that saying in a recent election, like a presidential election, but it had nothing. The saying didn't start with that. This saying came out of some crazy union thing. Like, there was like actually, I think it was TC37. It was a ballot stuffing scandal decades ago. It just doesn't end.
So the very confused conclusion there, though, is that it passed.
Yeah, I guess it did.
They approved it. Couldn't exactly tell from that, but they did. And so, explain what's happening next with this amendment.
So, because it passed the MLC in that chaotic fashion that no one knows about, well, I guess they do now. because it passed the MLC, they're supposed to be signing an agreement letter with labor relations that they agreed to do this. And then it goes before the city council. And so it has to be brought to the council, needs a sponsor, and then they'll make they have to pass a law, pass a rule, pass a resolution to change the code. And so that's the process. And it's the mayor has picked this up. Mayor Adams picked this up from Mayor de Blasio, who started this. And remember, he's the same mayor that told the UFT they could have their contract in 2014 and had to convey $1 billion out of this health insurance stabilization fund we talked about and get the unions to agree to healthcare savings, which they did in the 2018 agreement. And then now all of this mess is as a result of that. Because that was the very first time any union, to my knowledge, negotiated a contract that was partially funded on the backs of other unions and retirees. And so now, because the savings was found to be illegal, and rightly so, they now need to come up with the savings to make up for what they couldn't give back to the city. And this is how they're going to do it, by this chaos. And I received an email from a union president today saying to me, I want you to know that DC 37 has violated the APSME or the district council's constitution. None of this information was posed to us. It's supposed to be presented. We're supposed to negotiate it. We're supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to vote on it. None of this has happened, and this is just egregious. I received another email that there was one union president that was brand new or fairly new, and Henry Garrido had asked him Henry Garrido from DC 37's executive director had asked for his proxy because he wasn't supposed to be able to make the meeting, and didn't tell him what the meeting was about, the vote was about, just took his proxy. And then he was horrified to learn what the vote was about, what the meeting was about, and that Henry had voted in the affirmative to change the code on behalf of his local, because I guess he's been beat up about it. Then you heard Carmen Charles. Carmen Charles spoke out very passionately about not agreeing with the code change. She had to leave the meeting, passed her proxy to Henry Garrido, and then Henry voted again for her union in the affirmative. After hearing her very passionately outspoken comments that she did not agree with this change, he voted yes for her. That's just so improper. I don't even know what to say. It leaves me speechless. It's chilling, actually, that an executive director of a union would do this. And so now we wait. Now we have to wait to see if the city council will bring this to the floor. Will they vote on it? And will the council approve it? And if the council doesn't approve it, thank God for us and for the employees, because half the employees are listening to all of the misinformation that's coming out from some of these locals that are telling them that they have to do this, that costs are high, and those retirees, they sold out the unborn, and today we're the unborn, and screw them now too. So there's all these horrible things coming out, most of them not true. And you want to be able to say to them, do you even understand what this means? Do you understand what you're doing to you? Do you understand what's coming for you right now? Do you understand when they say that they want to do an RFP for the active plan? Do you know what that means? They want to replace your plan. And if they change the code and can choose any benchmark to you, today you're protected. There is no premium because the cap is at $925. But tomorrow, if they drop the cap to $10 or $100, you're on the hook for premium. It's coming, buddy. And this is not the only way to give a give back if that's what you insist on doing. There's other ways to find savings, but you just need to be more creative about doing it. There's other ways to save money. So by trying to educate them that way, now this honestly is out of everybody's hands. It's in the hands of the council. And from what we're hearing, the unions in the MLC, specifically DC 37, the UFT, MLC, are very heavily lobbying city council persons and telling them, you better support this, or we're not going to give you, contributions, and we're not going to endorse you. And It's like all threats to city council people. How do you do that? Because these plans are their plans as well.
Mhm.
So if you're a prudent elected official, and I'd like to hope that that's what we have, then they need to look at all sides of this and then make a determination, and to recognize that what was the intent of the city? What was the intent of the legislation? What was the intent when Mayor Lindsay put this in place and wanted to give health insurance to employees and retirees? Then your goal is to live by the intent of what was put into place, that all these people gave their lives to service of the city, and that you should be honoring the promises that you made to them. Now, if you want to go forward and change that rule, that should be done prospectively. But how do you hammer someone with these massive costs when they're on fixed incomes with never having expected you to do this because they knew that their benefits were promised to them in perpetuity? Because when you retire, your documents state that the health care that you had, the benefits that you had in employment, you carry with you in retirement until your death. So you carry what you had. And because you no longer have a union, because I no longer can vote for my officers, because I can no longer vote on these contracts, what part in the process am I in to make any changes? I'm not. And traditionally in the labor movement, unions protected the retirees and retiree benefits because, like Carmen Charles said, she's a retiree in waiting, and she knows that the benefits that she broke her rear end for, as did the others, that they would be waiting for her when she retired. It's criminal.
So what's happening with your case this month? And there's something happening on Wednesday for everyone who is stuck around to the end of this conversation can learn about. I'll put something in the notes too about that. I don't know if you have something on your channel about that or elsewhere.
I should have a short. If not, I'll do a short when we're done.
Okay.
So it is on our Facebook page. There should be a notice on our website. We did put it out in email. And so our court case. So like we said, we filed our lawsuit in September of 2021. We won in March of 2022. The city appealed the next day. And our case is being heard before the First District Appellate Court in Manhattan on October 27th. And on Wednesday, as in this Wednesday, the 12th of October, we are holding a rally at City Hall at 12:15 to be able to approach all of the council persons as they are walking into chambers and tell them, do not do this, do not change the code, hand out them some information and flyers, educate them as to what's going on, educate them as to why the fund might be in some financial instability, and how we think that they could be saving money and get get the money that was taken out back. Then at 3:30, we're going to march down the block and we're going to go to UFT headquarters and go and talk to Michael Mogro. He may not want to talk to us, or we're going to talk outside his building and go and tell him, stop messing with our health insurance, put that $1 billion that you took back in, find a way to do it. And we know he knows how. There's another document on the Independent Budget Office that says every year the city funds the teachers' retirement system, the TRS, but then the teachers take like $2 billion out of the TRS to fund their TDA, which is like a private deferred comp plan for the teachers. And I don't get that. That's kind of interesting. You're taking $2 billion out to fund your own deferred comp plan. Maybe instead of taking out $2 billion, maybe you take out $1 and you repay the other $1 that you took out. I mean, there's just why is not anyone looking at all these other creative alternatives? So we want to tell him, pay the money back, stop messing with our health insurance, find another way, and you could definitely find another way if you tried. So that's Wednesday. We did an all call out for active employees as well as retirees. Come and join us. We want, thousands of people out there if that's possible. We know, unfortunately, it's also the same day as the annual FDNY Memorial to honor all of those that we lost in the last year of service. And so that's a conflict in the schedule. But we're hoping that those that don't go to the memorial would come to the rally as well as everybody else, because that's just an FDNY, New York City Fire Department, Fire and EMS memorial.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, well, I want to really thank you for doing this, for adding so much insight to this presentation, and I also want to encourage people to comment. You know, this is something that came to me. I'm putting it out there because I think it's in the public interest. This is something that affects hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers and you know, people who have moved out of state even in their retirement. So it really does. It really is relevant to a lot of people's lives, and I know that a lot of people who've been following this issue on this channel are interested. So please do comment if you have questions for Marianne. Please put them in the comments. Because I'm hoping to continue this conversation down the line as things develop, and bring some of those questions that people may have to you, so that you can talk about that too. And I want to say to people from the unions, from the MLC, I would love to hear your point of view as well. I would love to speak with you, and everyone involved just wants to understand the situation better, and reach a conclusion. Yeah, we want to understand. People want to understand what's going on, what their union is doing, and you know, they need to know.
They do.
So come and talk to me.
Yes, and because it is, I think you do need to hear the other perspectives, and I think that would also help debunk some of the misinformation that's out there from that other side. That is probably the most disturbing thing about this, and I appreciate you asking me to you know, add to the commentary during this video. And we've been doing this for almost a year and almost 2 years now, and that's how actually I got my little buzzer, was debunking videos. Is I don't believe in when as a union leader, if you're a union leader, your word carries a lot of weight, and people believe and trust it. And it's important that it's on point. But if you're giving out misinformation, whether intentionally or not, it needs to be corrected if it's even in either instance. And if it's intentionally, shame on you. But when you realize that the message that you're putting out is information that you've been fed that's been incorrect, and the record needs to be corrected. So now in these situations, clearly you can see that in this meeting, grave misinformation is being fed to the union leaders, and there were a few that did push back, and yet the others just blindly went along without questioning, asking for proof, documentation, evidence, reports, nothing. So I think there needs to be an awakening. I think the rules in this organization need to be changed. I think the weighted vote needs to be changed. And I think the more people that actually see what's going on here, because this is really the first eye that anyone has into what actually goes on in this organization. And this might be the influence that could change this going forward. That weighted vote has to go. One union, one vote. It needs to be equitable and fair. And they need to share all of this information with their union presidents, and it shouldn't be secret. No more secrets. Hopefully they listen.
All right. Well, I think we're going to leave it there. So thank you very much. And we'll talk again.
Thanks for having me. Have a great night.
All right. You too.
Bye.